Codenamed Conclave 6, the highly trained team of bishops will reportedly infiltrate the heavily guarded compound, detonate extremely powerful charges at key points within the factory, and then escape to a nearby safe house.
The Catholic Church can trust only the best with defending God's plan. Conclave 6 is the deadliest team of bishops I've ever laid eyes on.
The Pope denied rumors that a B team of needle-wielding priests had been deployed to a latex factory in New Jersey to poke tiny holes into thousands of Durex condoms. Locally, the best part of a gay 12-year-old's day is the half hour he spends eating lunch alone in a stairwell. Calling it his only respite from constant ridicule and mockery, 7th grader Ben McElroy says life doesn't get better than the moments he spends quietly laying out his lunch on a secluded staircase while the rest of his classmates are in the cafeteria.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call in with anything you want to talk about. Tomorrow is the election, Yep.
Is it already the election?
Tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought there wasn't going to be an election tomorrow.
Why?
Well, people from quote-unquote QAnon were posting on X and saying, there's no election. It's going to be violence in the street and martial law.
I can't stand how everybody says that there's going to be violence in the street every election. Like I feel like
it comes up every single time.
It sounds like that they just want that to happen. So of course you're gonna, if you have any kind of influence on the internet and you want that to happen, you just start saying it's going to happen.
Well, the Democrats, when the Democrats are in power, I always seem to hear the conservative Republicans or whatever seem to say that, oh, well, this candidate's going to enact a martial law and the election's not going to happen or whatever. I heard it during Obama. I heard it, actually, strangely enough, when Bush was leaving.
They also
office
said it
too.
about Trump. Like
I've never heard it
leftists
until the
said
last,
about-
couple of elections, really, myself.
And then
this is Colin here.
They tried to, so on the show on Free Talk Live with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Colin.
And I was just going to say, they also said about Trump, because even during, January 6th, they acted like that was his attempt to, coup the, grab the
military
seat.
involved.
Lamest insurrection ever.
Yeah.
All those gun-toting Republicans and not a single gun.
They didn't have guns inside? I thought that maybe they had guns inside, but they didn't do anything.
No, but nobody was there. I mean, the Capitol Police had guns, but there was nobody that they've ever, found who was there with weapons that...
Is it illegal to just have a weapon in there?
In D.C. it is, yeah. D.C. has laws that you cannot have guns.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, they went after Adam Kokesh for that a number of years ago.
I guess the right to keep and bear arms does not exist in the nation's capital.
Nope.
No, it doesn't.
I would never live there.
I wouldn't either. Sounds like a horrible place to live.
Really just feels like you'd be right in the depths of some horrible, gross, karmic energy.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I don't have the article in front of me, but...
Guys, the underground parties there with the adrenochrome, it is so lit.
Oh my god. Scary.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I guess I exited off. It seemed kind of interesting in a way, but I had this story up where it said Tucker Carlson said that abortion causes hurricanes. Oh wait, I found it.
He said that?
He said, you can't participate in human sacrifice without consequences. So it's kind of like what I was talking about, being in the depths, being right in DC would be like being in that gross karmic nastiness.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm not that against what Tucker Carlson said. For the record, I do believe that people should have the right to have abortions, because it's a lot worse to say, oh, the government can go into your house, probe you and see if you're pregnant and put you in jail if you are, blah, 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 all that stuff. So much worse. But I personally don't agree with abortion, as in, I would never tell someone that's the right thing to do if it was outside of like saving their life or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I think rape is another reason you should be able to do it.
We actually got into a major discussion about abortion last night on the show, and my view on abortion is that I cannot tell a woman what to do with her body, and if she wants to carry a baby to term and give it up for adoption, if she doesn't want it, fine. But if she's coming to me and says, "Hey, do you think I should get an abortion?" I would strongly advocate that she doesn't get an abortion and gives the baby up for adoption. But if she's going to get an abortion anyway, I'm not going to stop her.
Yeah, I don't think it's something that other people should be allowed to try to stop.
Right.
And that's why I don't believe it should be illegal.
I agree.
But I also think it's kind of like, I think that if you did that, your womb would be haunted. And I'm not even joking. And I don't
have a womb, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, but I think that you'd be doing something karmically
There's this
not
meme
right.
out there, and it's like women say, like, my body's a temple. They're like, yeah, yours is like an Aztec temple.
Oh my god. So creepy. Well, one thing that really creeped me out, I was watching these people, I don't remember what their like organization is because this is a while ago. And I just wanted to just see if I could look into like any of the anti-abortion stuff and get my mind changed. I know I just did that for 1 week, and Ian kept being like, "Why are you watching that stuff? It's creeping me out." Like dead baby pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
And there is this group that are a bunch of leftist women. Well, I don't know if they're just women, but they're leftists, but they're against abortion. And they put out some really good content that might change your mind if you're just thinking it's not that bad. And one thing about it is I found out from them that in Baltimore, one way that they get the energy for their grid to like turn the lights on in people's houses is by burning medical waste. And some of that is aborted babies.
Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of electricity out of that, though.
So
I mean, they're probably have incinerators, and they're throwing whatever in there.
I know, and
it
doesn't. That still bothers me. I will never go to Baltimore and be under the light of aborted baby energy.
But what if your phone is dead?
Then I won't go to Baltimore.
I mean, it's a life for a life. Your phone would be alive. Baby would be. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god.
There is some interesting points that I hadn't heard until very recently, and one of them is some people were talking about abortion, and although this really isn't the topic that I was like most interested in talking about tonight,
it's not. We can change the topic, but go ahead.
But somebody was pointed out. They said that there was a law that was being passed, and what the law was going to say, I hope I don't like screw this up, is that oh boy, it's like you can not have if you have a medical thing and you need to have the baby removed, that doesn't mean that you have to abort the baby, right? Like you could try to save the baby and save the mother at the same time, but there's a push to where it's like no, it has to be aborted.
Wow.
Right. And so it's so when people say like, oh, well, what about the health of the mother? And it's like, well, but you don't have to abort in order to save the mother's life. You could just remove. I mean, the baby might die, or the baby might die during the procedure of removal to save the mother, but that's still different from performing an abortion, which is where you go in and intentionally kill the fetus.
Yeah, like before taking it out.
So yeah, there is definitely that kind of changed my way of looking at some of it, because it's like, oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that there's this other third sort of way here that I wasn't really aware of, and it's like, yeah, there are definitely some people who are actually obsessed with, in my opinion, the killing of babies. But whatever.
I think that there is like a lot of weird crap that goes on with doctors, and some of them are just total like psychopaths. Seriously, like if you think about like what it takes to be a doctor, and I'm not saying all of them, but if you think about what it takes to be a doctor, like you'd already have to have a very peculiar personality because of like the amount of time and dedication they have to put into it. Like they're not like most normal people, and I'm not saying that is my reasoning for them being a psychopath.
I don't get it. Why do you hate Ron Paul?
But when you look at when you go a little further,
how does she hate Ron Paul?
Because he's a doctor.
But listen,
I'm making a joke.
So they're already like very different. Something's a little off about them, and then after 2020, you basically have to be a government compliant like drone to be a doctor anymore. And it's really sad because I feel like there's probably some people that, you know, were like, no, this is my passion and I really want to do things this way and I think it's right. But first of all, after like being a doctor for like, you have to study for like 10 years to become a doctor. Being involved in that at all and not like batting an eye at the control of the information, like you have to think this way, you can't think that way about things. And then on top of it, after 2020, like giving people these vaccines that are like experimental. And then the other thing is like, I would wager all my money that every single doctor that gives trans surgeries is a psychopath. Like they just care about money and not the people. Because
why do you believe that?
Because they are performing these experimental, extremely dangerous, and just wacky, as in, like, I'm not saying it's unfamiliar to me. It's like it's unprecedented, quote unquote, surgeries on people that kill them at a high rate, and just make no sense. Like, if you have a mental problem, there's never been a scenario where doctors will disfigure you because then it will make your mental problem feel better. What?
Lobotomies.
Oh, well, that's horrible.
Yeah. I think a lot of this stuff is going to be looked back at in 20, 30, or 50 years with as if it were lobotomies.
Interesting.
So I just already don't trust like any doctors.
Yeah, in fact, I could go on a little further about that. Like they would give people lobotomies for just about anything, and so somebody'd be like, "Oh, I'm a little depressed" or whatever, to be like, "Oh, well, go get this procedure done." So it wasn't just like people with really, really severe mental issues. It was be like housewives who were suffering from depression would go get lobotomies, and of course, some of the times it did work for whatever reason, but sometimes the person was a vegetable afterwards.
Yeah, I thought that they basically always were. I thought that was the point that made them a vegetable.
It's a matter of how much you scramble the brains.
Wow. So
just to put it bluntly.
So, yeah, I mean, if that's the only example we can have of this in, like, medical history, doesn't bode very well. But I really do think that, like, the average person who's giving abortions that's a doctor, something a little messed up with you, too, because I don't know, I can't, like, and I believe in, like, objective morality. So if you're confused about that, I just think that there is such thing as right and wrong, and doing that over and over and over again and not, like, batting an eye at it, like I said, they're probably all psychopaths. But we didn't want to talk about abortion tonight, unless you guys had more you wanted to say about that.
I think we can move on.
The real thing I definitely want to talk about, and I know Colin wanted to talk about, is... Well, you want to talk about the Tom Woods, Dave Smith episode specifically, or just voting for Trump?
Oh, just everything in regards to that. I mean, because it's tomorrow, so, it's on people's minds. Of course, there's a certain segment of people who, are anarchists, and surprisingly, I'm kind of one of those. And so, I don't really believe in the government, but at the same time, we live in a world where the government does exist, and we have to deal with it. And so the question comes up, what do you do with elections? And do you participate? Do you not participate? Who should you vote for or not vote for if you're going to be voting? That kind of thing. And this is, everybody always says, oh, this is the most important election ever. And I'm like, this is definitely the most different one in my life. I look back at...
I mean, Trump has been the big running guy ever since 2020 or 2024 began. And so was Biden for a time, but then all of a sudden, Kamala takes power by force, it seems, in the Democrat Party. And yet, and also there are people that are slobbering all over her like she's God's gift to humanity, and we got to vote for her to save us from the evil Trump.
Everything that's happening right now is really, really crazy. Yeah. Like, it's the amount of stuff that would happen over the course of, like, a decade, like, an assassination attempt on a president. I mean, we get one of those like every, decade or so. We get like one of those. But, it's like, okay, there's like 2 attempts. Then you have like the stuff with Biden, basically not being fit to do anything really. And the fact is he wasn't even going back 3 or 3.5, 4 years ago, whatever. But all of that, I mean, you have the fact that they've impeached the Trump. You have the fact that There's been all the lawfare against him and all of that. And the thing is, the stuff's coming so fast in the news cycle. It's like I kind of forget about some of that stuff. And when each one of those things happened, I was like, this is like a new crossing of the Rubicon, a new thing that's like, very significant. And if it was just the one thing that decade, it'd be like, oh, okay, that was that one time that happened. But it's like, this is a lot of stuff going on.
And the left have been using Donald Trump's convictions or felony convictions as marks against him, but yet the Constitution doesn't say anything about a convicted felon not being allowed to run for office.
It's really strange how often I've been seeing leftists now say, you shouldn't vote for him because he's a felon, when it used to be that leftists
wanted felons to vote,
Well, not just that, but also that they just would be more likely to be the side saying, like, just because somebody has a felony doesn't make them not human, and the right would normally be like, oh, that's a felon, that's a criminal, I don't care, I trust what the jury said, It's crazy.
It just seems like the left is engaging in Trump derangement syndrome, as it's been called.
That's 100% a real thing.
Yeah.
I used to just think that was like a silly thing that like Republicans like to say, but I honestly think there's something about Donald Trump, such a unique personality, that he really riles something up in people who dislike him. For one thing, it's like Trump is actually cool.
I don't even know how much of that it is, and how much of it is that like these people are all in some ways being like propagandized and just filled with false news and stuff. It's like I recall, I was thinking about this earlier today, how before he even took office, so between the election and between when he was supposed to take office, they were saying he needs to be locked up, he's a criminal. And I'm like, oh wait, like he hasn't even done anything yet. He couldn't even possibly do anything. And at the same time, I'm thinking like, well wait, it's not like you were saying this during the election. So where the heck did this narrative come from, and how are you all accepting it and saying it? And it's interesting that there's been tons of man on the street interviews where they walk up to people and they're like, yeah, he's a criminal. It's like, what did he do? And it's like, and it's like they don't even know. So it's really weird stuff.
And that's actually just a horrible statement about just how people think about this stuff in general, because the thing is, people, if they hear that somebody even got a charge and haven't been to court yet, they just are like, oh, they're a bad person, because they're just like, they have been indoctrinated into believing that if the government goes after you, they must have a good reason. They must know that you're a bad person, and that is just so horrible. That's not what the justice system was like put in on purpose for, and it shouldn't be being used that way.
Well, I think it's interesting because it's really woken up a lot of the conservatives to where they now aren't just trusting stuff that comes out of the legal system or, out of the news. And so there's been kind of a great awakening, and I wonder if that could be rolled back or not. I remember thinking back in the days when, George Bush was going to war and all that sort of stuff, and you had all the liberals were anti-war, and I thought, wow, you guys are like maybe the...
Waking up.
Huh?
Wait, did you think back then like they're waking up?
Well, not that they were waking up, just that they were at least aware on that one issue. But now they're not on that issue, and it's like, what issue are they woken up on?
Tom Waits just followed me back on Twitter. Yay.
Oh, wow. That's
so
cool.
Cute. And also Angela McArdle, the chair of the Libertarian Party, she retweeted something of mine today and is asking people to go to Ian's website. It's freeiannow.org. And that is just so nice. I've just been feeling the love today.
Good. So speaking of Ian, I did sign the change.org petition to free Ian. So
thank you.
I'm excited about that. Yeah.
So if you go to freeiannow.org, you can find the link to the change.org petition. We did have to move it. So if you signed Ian's petition just on his website when it first came out, we ended up needing like a different format for different reasons, so we moved it to change.org, even though we had already hit over 100 signatures. So if you already did that, it would be great if you'd go to his website again, find the change.org link, and sign the petition again. And one thing is that Angela McArdle, she is really awesome. Didn't really know anything about her previously, and she is helping, like talking with us about things we can do to attempt to get Ian Freeman, my husband, in front of Trump. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. And I think that Trump would be the guy to really look at Ian Freeman. I mean, Trump has dealt with the legal system this past year.
Yeah.
And he's promised to free Ross Ulbricht, or not free Ross Ulbricht, or commuted sentenced to time served.
He actually said save Ross Ulbricht even.
Wow, that's even better.
I know.
So I think that Trump potentially has the ability to affect Ian's case as well. And that could be really exciting for us.
And to a certain degree, you could say, well, he's just saying whatever, which he might be. He might not get around to it, right?
Sure,
but
he's the politician.
But he did do a lot of different stuff with some of these different rappers and stuff that were in prison.
Oh, I didn't hear. I don't.
You don't remember that? Yeah.
The thing is, I know he let some people out at the end, and people were disappointed that it wasn't Ross. But he never had publicly said anything about Ross at that point. So a lot of people point to the fact that he didn't free him 4 years or 5 years ago or whatever as evidence that he won't do it now. But I think that's a little weird considering you don't even know that he even knew about Ross Ulbricht back then. Or if he did, was there anyone good in his ear telling him no, you really should do this? I think Vivek Ramaswamy actually is, and Angela McArdle.
So I think during Trump's first administration, he picked people who probably were in bed with the government to begin with because they were familiar with the system, and he probably didn't expect to win. So it's just
he's basically said as much recently in different interviews.
On the Joe Rogan interview, did you listen to that?
And some other ones too.
Not. I would like to listen to it, so I'll have to take some time to really listen to that interview.
It was really interesting, and he did say when he first got in, Joe Rogan asked him why did you make some of the picks you made that people were upset about? It seemed like you put swamp creatures right back into your cabinet, and he said the thing is he just didn't know as much back then, and that people around him that he thought were good people, he trusted that they knew what they're talking about and took their advice, and that he wouldn't do that this time, and he knows more who's good and who's bad.
I was listening while I was working today to Tucker Carlson interview thingy with him, and he actually said, he's like, well, when I showed up there, I didn't know anybody really in Washington, and he's like, so I kind of went off of these recommendations, and I got these people, and of course, I mean, if you think about it, there's 350 million people in the country, the president doesn't know all of them, but through a series of intermediates, in a way, he can, right? So it's well, you get these 10 people around you, and they each know 100, and those people know 100, and whatever, but he didn't get the right people. He got a lot of swamp creatures, for sure, and he recognizes that now, and it's interesting hearing him, kind of talk trash a little bit on some of these people like Pence,
Oh, really? He talked trash about Pence? I didn't know that.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm saying it a little strongly than what it was, but it was like he said something and the crowd booed, and he's like, oh yeah,
Oh, I see. About Pence. Yeah, I don't remember if he even brought Pence up if he brought him up in the Joe Rogan interview, but I didn't watch the Tucker one.
Something else to say is he has surrounded himself with, just think of 3 of the people who are going to be involved in some way. RFK, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh.
And all 3 of those people went to either PorcFest or Liberty Forum this year.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point.
So we, as libertarians, have more potential say than ever before, potentially. But it seems like it is, because those are the heavy swingers in the campaign right now, who are doing all the appearances, and he talks them up every time.
I bet that his VP, I forget his name right now, would maybe go to PorcFest. JD Vance.
Maybe not.
It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Don't go anywhere. Free Talk Live, and the number is 603-283-6160 if you'd like to get in on the conversation with us. 603-283-6160.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on this, the final day of campaigning. Trump has been spending the day in North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Michigan. The former president is asking people to get out to vote as soon as possible.
Just show up and bring your vote. And if you have somebody else that got a little lazy, bring that person too. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
Meanwhile, Harris has been hitting multiple locations across Pennsylvania.
Over these next 24 hours, let's enjoy this moment to knock on a neighbor's door and in their face, even if we've not met them, know that we have a lot that we care about in common. Let's be intentional about building community, about building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Kate Fisher has more from Washington on the final day of campaigning.
Trump will also be in North Carolina and will keep up his tradition of holding his last rally in Michigan. Harris plans to crisscross the Keystone State, ending her day with a star-studded event at the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Pollsters say the race is still too close to call as this tumultuous election campaign enters its final day, with the two candidates offering starkly different visions for America. 78 million people have already cast their ballots.
Officials in Spain say they understand people's frustrations after Spain's king was pelted with mud on a visit to one of the towns devastated by last week's flooding. Nearly 220 people are known to have died, with dozens more missing in and around the city of Valencia. Samuel Romero is a civil engineer in the area. He says volunteers have been working tirelessly.
We need to clean so many houses, we need to clean so many businesses. More people we will need once we need to rebuild all this. But what we need is big machinery, because we need to move all the stuff to lorries in order to clean the streets first, and then to put some water in there and start cleaning all the pavement.
Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, claimed her second term with 55% of votes after a closely fought and tense election that saw allegations of Russian meddling. Ever since Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
Sandu's victory is significant for Moldova as it continues to push for EU integration. Her rival, Alexander Stoyanoglu, was backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists and had called for closer ties with Moscow. During the election, the president's national security advisor warned there had been interference from Russia that could potentially distort the outcome.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency made for spending. You can pay your bills with Dash at spritz.finance. Plus, they can send dollars to your bank if you still need those for something. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Colin.
And in the last segment, I still have more to say. If you guys still have more to say. In the last segment, we were talking about the election and the fact that, well, I will just go ahead and say I'm voting for Trump. You guys don't have to say who you're voting for. You said you're going to vote tomorrow, though, right?
Yeah, I was going to write in Chase Oliver.
You don't even have to write him in. He's
No,
on the ballot here.
Oh, he is? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing that at all.
I wanted Chase Oliver on the ballot here, honestly, because I really don't think he's taking any votes away from Republicans.
I don't think so either. I think a lot of Republicans are made up on who they want to vote for, and I think it's Donald Trump.
I think it would be great if he takes any votes away from Democrats.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think so. I think they're so lockstep.
Yeah,
and,
most of them, but I'm just saying. But there might be somebody who's not even necessarily like a diehard Democrat, but they lean more left, and then they look into the candidates and they're like, you know what? I like this Chase Oliver guy because he's like obviously more of a leftist. And then they vote for him instead of voting for Kamala. I could see that happening. I really don't see it happening almost at all that somebody votes for, they were about to vote for Trump and then they changed their mind and voted for Chase Oliver. Yeah, I don't see it happening. So I made this long tweet today. I'm not going to read it, but I gave my reasons why libertarians should vote for Trump. And one of them, the main thing that I was pointing out, and I was so happy that Tom Woods and Dave Smith talked about this on the Tom Woods show last week. I am completely against, and I think I am absolutely consistent with my logic here. I am against the idea that some people have that voting is an aggression or violent.
So I think the big idea is with the people who say that voting is violence is that when you cast a vote, you are saying that you want this person to rule you and them, and they don't want that person to rule them. So that's how they get to the point where voting is violence.
But the thing is, one huge thing is that you can't just extrapolate what I am saying by even voting. You know, like I could be saying I want Trump to be the president and not be doing anything to me, which is actually the truth.
Yeah.
Or to you or your friends. I really just want him to free Ross and get rid of the income tax. So it's like you can assume if I even voted for Chase Oliver that I wanted him to do something bad to you if you wanted, but it's not a contract.
Right.
And that's where I was kind of thinking about it. And apparently, sorry, Dave and Tom Wood said that Lysander Spooner never said it was aggression. I really thought that he did in No Treason. He talked about how it can be used as a bullet against your neighbors or a bullet in self-defense. And he said it'd be best to just throw the whole thing out.
Well, that's actually something you could agree on. I mean, like if the option is to throw the whole thing out, then that would be better.
Yeah.
You know, when we have the state, we have this massive monster that wants to, you know, throw bombs into your house and scare your dog and take your husband to jail.
Yeah.
The best way to counteract their attacks is by voting for your favorite criminal in chief to govern the awful office so that you can have a safer place to live and not have to worry about your husband being dragged into further court proceedings because he committed a victimless crime.
And the thing is, like, I would never try to tell people that because my husband's in prison, that is, like, the main reason to vote for Trump or anything. I really see it being a systemic thing altogether where everything will get better if Trump is president, but it will get much worse if Kamala's president.
Well, yeah, think about this. All of these crypto prosecutions, Ver, Ian,
Samurai, Wallet,
this has all happened under this administration and not under Trump's. I don't know. Is there one that did happen under him? I'm not like really aware.
No, well, not anything that I knew of or know of. I've never heard of that being said. But like any crypto people gone after before 2020.
I mean, and again, we could say that, you know, he's just saying whatever he wants to say to get elected.
Well, unless
but
you say Ross, which was under Obama.
Yeah, he is saying things like, I want the U.S. to be the crypto capital of the world. We're going to make all of the Bitcoins here.
Yeah,
like he said that, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But he is saying stuff like that, and he's definitely courting that vote, if you want to call it that. And he's saying, you know, free Ross. And I mean, you know, and also like, I feel like there's some ideas that are, I hate to say it this way, like so dangerous, but they're so fundamental that if a candidate pushes those ideas, they actually upset the whole system. Like if he actually pushes crypto and like gets the government out of the way, I mean that upsets everything.
Like,
that could literally
safe
upset the blood money US dollar.
Like one huge thing with crypto that is like a current impediment is that we need something that's like AnyPay again, but people are scared to do it. We have a new one right now, and man, I cannot remember what it's called off the top of my head. And the thing is, like, a lot of times these things pop up and then go away really fast because those people get threatened or actually thrown in jail. Even if people just felt a little safer about doing something like that, and if you don't know what AnyPay was or what I mean by that, I mean some kind of an app that you can give to your employees and they can accept crypto right at the front desk without you needing to be there, without them having actual access to your wallet, and your customers can, in a store or a restaurant or whatever,
like a point of sale type system.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly. Because the thing is, like, you could easily currently right now accept crypto at a business if you're the person there, you the boss are always there to take the crypto. Here in Keene, the Mighty Moose Mart accepts crypto, but they really need something when the bosses aren't there. Just these college girls that work there are there, and they can accept crypto, verify that it went through, and not have to be like with their hands literally inside the wallet. If people just simply felt safer to create that kind of software right now, that would be so big. There's almost nothing that would be better for
the feds have gone after every
libertarians.
aspect of it. What are some of the ones like
ATMs?
local Bitcoin,
or vending machines?
The vending machines all across the country. Ian wasn't the only one.
They attacked a little bit too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The exchanges, they've gone after each and everything.
With the vending machines, Ian got gone after, and then tons of people, even people I know in real life, quit after that because of the chilling effect.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, me too. I know people.
To me, that when you have these people empowered by a Democrat administration that seems to love the government and love the power they wield, they're going to come after things that break their power, that break their grip, that break their hold on the average person, because they want power. They want to believe that they are the ultimate good, the ultimate arbiters of good. And so they force that power, their goodness on you, but yet they're criminals. They're destructive. They're violent gang members. They're upholding an ideology that is enabling slavery.
There's what's the thing that Hillary said recently? Did you hear about this? The quote she made was something like, "Oh, we have to take control of speech on the internet, or we're doomed," or something like.
She said it's over.
Or it's over. Yeah. And then of course we know that the Biden administration was pressuring social media and very directly, not like hinting at it. Like they now have emails and stuff that's been released that shows where they were like, "Yeah, you need to silence that person or go after that person."
Well, when they control the speech, they control the ideas and the populace, and when they take your voice away, your tongue away, your mouth away, the words you can speak away, they control you.
I mean, it does seem to me like, if you back in the day when I first kind of became a libertarian, it's like, well, both parties are bad. It's like, I'm fiscally conservative and socially liberal, right? And it's like there's half of the Democratic platform I could take and half of the Republican platform I could take, let's say. But nowadays, there really is kind of like one party that is really, really, really substantially, demonstrably worse than the other party. The other party is just not good.
And a huge thing that
well, I mean, we have this freedom of speech thing. We have them going after everybody's financial stuff all the time. We have, we have examples of
leftists, right?
Yeah, and what they've done in other countries too, like Trudeau in Canada. So they're like trying to take your money, your voice. They want to put you in wars all around the world. I mean, say what you will, Trump did not start any new wars, right?
Yeah, he didn't start new wars, but he escalated a bunch of them.
I don't know any details about that, but one thing is I really think that he would get us out of, well, it's not really like we are in, but we're basically in Ukraine. I really think that he would get...
I'm not in Ukraine. I don't know about you. Are you in Ukraine?
Well, I just mean that people that are American are in Ukraine, and well, there are actually people that have been there, but also dollars are there.
Yeah.
From America, and
equipment, all sorts of stuff.
If you pay any taxes, even on accident, like I know for sure one place I pay taxes is gas, but I guess that's not federal. Anyways.
No, there's a federal component to the gas tax. Yeah.
So yeah, if you're paying...
In fact, it's the largest portion in general. I think it's like 30 cents. You know, in fact, this is a funny thing. You know, Congress used to haul these the gas and oil companies before them and be like, you guys are making extraordinary or whatever, you know, really big profits. And then you look into it and you calculate what that was like per gallon, and it'd be like 10 cents. And it's like, wait, the federal tax on, and it was like 30 cents or something like that. And so it's like, wait, no, you're making the huge profit on it. Because like at least the execs are doing something related to the oil industry. You're literally doing nothing.
Just getting the money.
Yeah.
The government is just projecting their evil onto the people they hate.
I completely, or just, you know, moving the eyes of the public away from them and to look at someone else, because everyone can easily hate big business executives. For the most part, I pretty much hate them. They do lots of bad stuff. They are in bed with the government to do what they do. And if we had a free market, like businesses in general would be so much better behaved. It's just that I think the government uses that as a way to like get the ire off of them.
Well, more specifically, almost every major corporation is a corporation, and a corporation is a charter granted by the government that limits liability. Mm-hmm. So they are, in fact, any business, even if you who might be listening to the show right now might be like, well, I have an LLC. It's like, yeah, you have gone to the government and asked for permission to have that. You don't need that to just do business. Mm-hmm. Any individuals can do business, but you went to them and asked, hey, can you make it to where I'm not liable? And they said, sure. But now you're actually one of their slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
In ways that you didn't realize. Like all of those, legally speaking, all of those things that came out in the states regarding mask mandates and things like that, they usually said, you know, it was only for the government. But corporations are actually part of the government, literally, not just this theoretical, oh, well, they're kind of like part of the government because the government gave them this thing. No, they actually are. Corporate law,
like corporate fascism.
Yeah, corporate law applies to them. Different laws apply to them that don't normally apply to the regular people, and you agreed to it, and you went to them and asked for it.
Yeah, like if someone tries to tell me like, oh, this law does apply to you, but I never agreed with it. They're trying to claim that it's the social contract. You just implicitly agree to it. But then when you do things where you make deals with the government, you literally did agree to it, whether you read the fine print or not.
Yeah. Well, just think about it. How in the world would your liability ever be limited? Like, why would you not be held responsible for things?
That's LLC.
Yeah, LLC. Yeah, why would you not be held responsible for the things you did? And you're saying, well, I did it as the officer of a corporation. It's in the same way that you, like in the military, be like, oh, well, I did what the guy above me told me to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just this mindless order following that people engage in because it's so convenient. It's easy to have someone think for you. It's harder to think for yourself and question authority.
The other thing about it, though, is like most people just are trying not to get in trouble. They're trying to make a living and get their company started, and they just are trying not to get in trouble. I'm not using that as an excuse for them. Right. I'm just saying that more than likely that's the number one reason in anyone's head when they start a company, why they apply for, becoming an LLC or whatever. Like I had some friends in high school, right when we all graduated, they started a company with their own money that they made in high school. They started a moving business in San Antonio. It's still a thing. And he was always telling me, like, oh my God, it's so annoying, Bonnie. Like, you wouldn't even know, like, the type of stuff I have to, like, fill out to start my company. He was always, like, having to learn new things. And it's, I think that it's, like, partially, like, it is, like, mindlessness. But for the most part, when you are at the base level of need as a human being, you just need to, like, get food and get paid, and you're just starting a business for that. I can't really blame someone for not thinking at a up here level.
I have a little bit more to say that I think people used to know better, but then because of public schools, they now don't know better. It's just like, how many people graduate or, not graduate, but get whatever diplomas, get out of high school, and they don't know how to balance checkbooks and things like that. And it's like, don't you think that the school should be teaching them something that's so fundamental as that, right?
Yeah. I think people are so used to following the rules because That's the way they've been indoctrinated through the government school system.
That's so
when
true.
When you're indoctrinated through the daycare, middle class daycare prison system, you're essentially this drone.
Perfect description.
You're programmed. You're told how to think. You're told what to think. You're forced into a classroom to sit for hours in front of this room with a person called a teacher, and they are the authority figure, and you're going to listen to them. And it comes from churches too. You have these authority figures that tell you, we speak for God. You will obey us because God speaks through us.
I also remember...
To add to the thing, though, I was going to say the number one selling book back in like 1775 or whatever. This is an anecdote. I don't know the actual details. No, well, but maybe it was right after the Bible was something like the Black's Law Dictionary. So the thing is, all of the like the patriots and the people at the founding of the country were very well versed in like law and legalism stuff and all of that. But yeah, nobody is anymore. Nobody knows anything about that. They don't even know. They actually think in a way. I think they call this like legal positivism. They think I can't run a business unless I have an LLC.
Yeah, that's so true because it's like that they think that it doesn't exist until they cause it to exist via the government.
Yes.
And I see that with everything. It's not just businesses. And in fact, I have watched myself get untrained at thinking that way because Ian is amazing at this. Whenever we're doing something or anything, like I just can't think of an exact example, and I say something like, well, are we allowed to do this? He's like, you can just do it. And it makes me think, oh yeah, we can just do it. Like I kind of just forgot that's a thing. And it's not just like doing things that are wrong and then saying, well, we can just do it and then
no, I used to think like
later.
that too.
It's not just
but that's one of the things that
wrong.
really annoyed me because I'd be like, well, wait, I can't just do this. Oh, wait, what do I need? Oh, I need this license and that license. I started looking at it. I was like, this is crazy. This is impossible. How could anybody ever comply with all of this or know all of that?
Crazy.
And that's, around the time I started becoming a libertarian. But now I look at it all differently, which is all of that stuff is completely artificial from the get-go. Like, it's not just a matter of, oh, there's too many laws and too many rules and too many licenses and they're too costly. It's that you never needed any of them to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
They were all basically things that the government put in front of you as a carrot to get you into their system.
That they also really will do something that is wrong. It's not that it's right, but they really will go after you if you don't do a lot of these things.
I think it was harder for them to do that in the past because people used to go to courtrooms and actually watch proceedings.
It was harder before.
And they couldn't just
they were willing to get more involved in the process.
And people knew the rules and they knew the dictionary definitions of all the terms and everything.
I don't think it's just that. I think it's that people, if one person is like sticking out like sore thumb, the government will go after them. Like Ian was not allowed to be running a business that he shouldn't have it to ask anyone permission to run. Yeah. But he was the one person kind of doing it and being open about it, so they went after him in a really extreme way, like the freaking Soviets. Oh, okay, one thing about back to the Trump stuff, one big reason, and I said that this is something that I had to that I kind of like thought about myself. We were saying, that the left is right now worse than the right. I don't agree with all this like repeating the mantra. If you're a libertarian, you shouldn't think that way. I'm gonna repeat the mantra. The left and the right are exactly the same. The right, if you actually look at the way things are right now, I don't think that that's the case. And one thing that made me start opening up and thinking differently about this, and like Jeremy Kauffman starts calling me a right winger on Twitter and stuff, is
wait, isn't he a right winger?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, some insults just saying it. But anyways, is the fact that everybody that came after Ian, everybody that was part of the government's the government's arm, other than the people who were the quote unquote victims that were not really the victims of Ian, everybody who was like official capacity on Ian's side was a woman. Everyone. Yeah. Everyone who went up on the testimony thing, except there was one like there was one person that went up there for some I think it might have even been the guy for the post office or some tax person. No, the tax lady was a woman. They're all women. This and number two is like, you can tell when somebody is a left winger or a right winger. They were like all obviously leftists. obviously. The FBI right now is run by a bunch of blue-haired feminists, and they are so happy and excited to go after people's freedoms right now. And I also got to see
smash the patriarchy.
Yeah, I also saw and they
I'm going to say
used
some
elements
controversial
like
stuff
that.
here in a minute.
They used elements of that in their arguments about Ian. And the other thing is I got to see some like FBI and bankers, women, like their emails with each other, and they were like, "Hey, I got this. Thanks, Cindy. Let me help you get that." They were like, they just really believe they're doing something really good, and they really believe that they are like getting the bad guys, and they're all like just like little high school girls about it.
I'm going to speak to the wider trend, which is we haven't had such a separation in the sexes politically as we have right now. In the last, was it the last election or was it the last midterm? Anyways, there was like some polling data that showed this, and they had a breakdown, and the breakdown was men, women, married, unmarried. And so you had 4 categories, right? Single men, single women, married men. And in 3 of the categories, that is the categories that were not single women, it was something like 55 to 45 Republican to Democrat. But then in the single woman category, you had like 75 to 25. It's something really huge like that. Don't quote me on the numbers. I'd have to go look for this and find it.
Just painting a picture.
Yeah, just painting the picture. The picture is that the whole entire country is kind of on one track, and then all of these single women are on another track, or an overwhelming majority of them. I think you know what I mean by that. But the thing I was going to say that's more controversial is I kind of feel like this thing that's happening is a sort of like female madness in a crowd form. And I would point to historic examples that I think have been painted differently as time's gone on, like the Salem witch trials. They paint all the witches as like victims, but for all we know, those were like the most horrible women in the community that were causing all of the trouble for everybody.
What? I don't know if that's like anything you could possibly like bring up, and I think there's stronger cases for you to make.
I know. That's why I said I wanted to have some fun with this one.
Unmasculine and like what do you consider, or what do you think of when you think of like a leftist man? It's they're all women, but they're unmasculine men.
But there's not that many of them.
It's not about your genitals as much as legitimately the way people act.
I think a lot of leftist men are more people pleasers. They want to keep everyone happy. They want to.
But there's not many of them.
That with their women.
Yeah.
Like they will.
Well, but this is the thing. You
there
have
are definitely like million, or like hundreds of thousands. Oh, well, we got to go on break, but we will be right back. It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. Don't go anywhere. 2 more hours of Free Talk Live coming up. 603-283-6160. We're going to get into your calls, and it's Free Talk Live.
Generic or name brand? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. On a radio interview, I suggested comparing the ingredients in generic over-the-counter meds with name brand pills. And we got a call from a pharmacist who said that some generics might not work as well as name brand pills because of inactive ingredients you won't see listed on the packages. For seasonal hay fever, I myself came back to Sudafed after the store brand with the same active ingredient wasn't as effective. Dr. Roy Blackburn was listening, and he writes, the meds which are probably most important not to buy generically are cardiac meds and thyroid meds. Otherwise, it is worth a try to use generics. Thanks, Doc. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on this, the final day of campaigning. Trump has been spending the day in North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Michigan. The former president is asking people to get out to vote as soon as possible.
Just show up and bring your vote. And if you have somebody else that got a little lazy, bring that person too. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
Meanwhile, Harris has been hitting multiple locations across Pennsylvania.
Over these next 24 hours, let's enjoy this moment to knock on a neighbor's door and in their face, even if we've not met them, know that we have a lot that we care about in common. Let's be intentional about building community, about building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Kate Fisher has more from Washington on the final day of campaigning.
Trump will also be in North Carolina and will keep up his tradition of holding his last rally in Michigan. Harris plans to crisscross the Keystone State, ending her day with a star-studded event at the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Pollsters say the race is still too close to call as this tumultuous election campaign enters its final day, with the two candidates offering starkly different visions for America. 78 million people have already cast their ballots.
Officials in Spain say they understand people's frustrations after Spain's king was pelted with mud on a visit to one of the towns devastated by last week's flooding. Nearly 220 people are known to have died, with dozens more missing in and around the city of Valencia. Samuel Romero is a civil engineer in the area. He says volunteers have been working tirelessly.
We need to clean so many houses, we need to clean so many businesses. More people we will need once we need to rebuild all this. But what we need is big machinery, because we need to move all the stuff to lorries in order to clean the streets first, and then to put some water in there and start cleaning all the pavement.
Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, claimed her second term with 55% of votes after a closely fought and tense election that saw allegations of Russian meddling. Ever since Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
Sandu's victory is significant for Moldova as it continues to push for EU integration. Her rival, Alexander Stoyanoglu, was backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists and had called for closer ties with Moscow. During the election, the president's national security advisor warned there had been interference from Russia that could potentially distort the outcome.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As America's election wraps up, will the gender gap in support between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump prove to be decisive? More women say they are determined to vote for Harris than men are for Trump, and in early voting, women have participated in greater numbers than men, fueled, the Democrats believe, by a desire to protect abortion rights in America. Michael Yaki is a former senior advisor to Nancy Pelosi.
Well, I think you're going to be seeing it, especially in the areas where there's a state referendum on it. There's one in Florida. There's one in Arizona. There's one in Montana. You know, Kamala Harris did a little drop-by in Florida not too long ago. And I think that measure, the initiative to sort of end the 6-week abortion ban, is gaining a lot of steam and may have a knock-on effect for Kamala Harris's campaign. This is not unlike what the Republicans did in 2004 when they put on a bunch of competitive state ballots, anti-gay marriage measures, which at that time were fairly popular in a lot of conservative states. They used that as a means to generate turnout from the Christian right. And I think that we're seeing here is one of the largest in history gender gaps in voting that we'll be seeing. And it's going to be interesting to look at the numbers at when the polls close and everyone's sort of dissecting what happens at how big that gender gap is.
And that gap, some polls suggest, is as high as 19%, even in this fiercely competitive race between Harris and Trump. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, the US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on the final day of campaigning. Officials in Valencia say they understand people's frustration after more than 220 people died in devastating flooding last week. And Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president has claimed her second term with 55% of the votes. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Caitlin Taggart was a beautiful, lively girl who loved laughing and playing outside, but all that changed at the age of 12. Caitlin slipped into a persistent vegetative state, confining her almost entirely to her bed and Facebook.
She doesn't even have basic motor functions anymore. We literally have to drag her to the car to drive her to school in the morning.
She's totally unresponsive when we talk to her. Her eyes just roll back in her head.
Caitlin, honey, it's your dad.
With no hope that their daughter would ever recover, the Taggarts decided to seek legal permission to end Caitlin's life.
It is the most difficult decision we've ever had to make, but we just keep reminding ourselves that the real Caitlin is already gone. That's just her body texting.
We give her one painless injection, and that's it. Her eyes may flutter a bit, or she may murmur, "Are you for real killing me right now?"
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app. That's edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. Thanks again to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live, and again, to learn more, visit edge.app. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Colin.
And we do already have a caller on the phone, so I'm going to go to your calls and thoughts. Scott, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
How's it going, Bonnie?
Hey.
Not too much. I'm excited about the election, and I've been doing a lot of research on Milei, and if you want to talk a little bit about that and how his election compares to this one, that'd be kind of interesting.
Sure. What would you say are some things you could compare with him and Trump in their elections?
Well, I think there's I think one of the biggest comparisons is that the ruling party was presiding over the presidency for both Trump and for Kamala, and for Biden. So both were fighting the incumbents, and in fact, both cases. In Milei's case, the president was Alberto Fernandez. And he was so unpopular that he didn't even run for re-election. And instead
Almost
they ran...
sounds like a bit like Biden.
Almost.
Yeah, they ran Sergio Massa instead, who was very unpopular. So, and
it was like an establishment shill. He was the former like economics So, you know,
yeah. He basically was president. He was the economics minister. They gave him control over the entire government, essentially. So he actually had more control over the government than Kamala, or Kamala, whatever you call. However
you're gonna love this. I like to call her sometimes Kamala.
Kamala, okay. Kamala, yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know Spanish,
how bad.
It's saying how bad, yeah.
Yeah, Kamala. That's great, yeah. So it is kind of interesting. They both ran on sort of a anti-establishment ticket. Milei obviously a lot more. And against the regime, and both of them were Milei and Trump are probably at threat by the regime if they lose. So there's a lot on the stakes for both of them. I think that Trump's rhetoric in some ways has been better this time.
Yeah,
he's talked about having Elon Musk come and cut the government, and I think Elon has been influenced by Milei.
Oh yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to mention earlier.
Oh yeah, and Trump and Milei also met.
But this what are they calling it? Department of Government Efficiency.
Department of
Elon
Government
and
Efficiency.
Trump thing that he wants.
Yeah, and I think didn't Ron Paul say he'd be interested in being part of it?
So Elon Musk tweeted that he would be happy to have Ron Paul, since he's famous for voting no every single time, be a part of his Department of Government Efficiency, is what you're calling it. It's
which is actually kind of funny.
And
if
Ron
you
Paul
think about
retweeted,
it.
"I'd
Are
be
they
happy
going
to help."
to create a department? Because that's like moving in the wrong direction, right?
They would have to.
But it might not be an actual department. It might just be, like a kitchen cabinet thing, or he might just stick them in some department
I think they would have to create a department because they were calling it that, and then they'd have to give it their specific rules.
Because the acronym for that was DOGE.
Are you serious?
Department of Government Efficiency.
Whoa.
That's funny.
So I don't know if that was intentional.
That's crazy. And because specifically Elon Musk loves Doge or talks about it a lot. Used to accept it. I think that stopped for Teslas.
But this is me kind of hoping and wishing, but I could see things working out because they're going to have to. I mean, like the U.S., regardless of who wins this next election, we're talking about having Argentina-style inflation and things like that going down, with the dollar potentially using world reserve, status and all of that. But what would have to be done to turn that around? This is a question I ask myself, other than having a collapse, how else could this be resolved? And the only other way it could be resolved is if they completely cut just left and right all sorts of stuff out of the government. They, got sound money. They did, if they did that, they could save this thing. And to me, that's like what Milei has done. And, it's working down there. He's saving that thing, which, as an anarchist, you might be like, well, maybe it's better off collapsing. But, so I don't know. There might be some parallels there. I mean, he didn't do any of that his first time around, Trump, as president, but maybe a second time around with all of these people who are much more libertarian, and with him really understanding what the swamp is and all of that, maybe we'll see huge cuts. Maybe we'll see something done to, and then what's the thing? He was floating, kind of, not very seriously, but on Joe Rogan, he said,
the income tax?
Yeah, the income tax. I mean, oh my God, what would that do to productivity and innovation in this country?
That'd be amazing.
It's actually a good thing to end the income tax, and it would be nice to have tariffs. Well, I don't really like tariffs in general, but if you're going to end an income tax, you might as well try and replace it with something, and tariffs might be a less bad option.
And an interesting thing, although if Scott has something to say, but an interesting thing I'll throw out there is that before the income tax, the government was funded almost completely through tariffs, the federal government. And what they said is, we'll get rid of the tariffs if we can have the income tax. And then, so they did that for like a year or two. And then what did they do? They brought back the tariffs, and then the income tax just went up and up and up. And now what do we have? We have both tariffs and an income tax. But the problem with the income tax is it allows the federal government to just pick people, because nobody's in compliance. and they could just pick anybody they want at any time to make an example out of them. So they basically criminalized the whole entire country. Meanwhile, with a tariff, like, okay, maybe they could just criminalize importers and exporters. But, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, with that, a couple things. Malay actually did start a small ministry, but it was called the Ministry of Deregulation and Transformation of the State. So, and they have been going hardcore after he got his legislation passed in late June to actually do this, to actually cut, a lot of really cool regulations. And to free up their economy. So, if you want to do it, if you want to have a team to do it, I guess that is one of probably the more justified ways to have a department. And the tariffs and income tax, Colin's exactly right. That was the argument, is that we're going to lower tariffs that hurt certain groups of people worse for an income tax, a small income tax, and it's going to be only a few percent of the richest people. So I think at the time it was like $400,000 a year or something. It was like the absolute richest people.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is they got in World War. They used it to finance World War One, and
they got addicted.
during World War One they raised the tax rate to 77%. Just a few years after getting
and the tariffs
tax.
were back. Yeah,
and they brought the tariffs back, of course. So that's why you just never want to introduce a new tax. But yeah.
So what are some similarities between like what he's done and certain things that Trump is planning to do? Like you said that he created this I don't remember what you called it now, this board Malay did in Argentina, but was it successful in cutting down government? Because like Colin said, they created a board in order to get rid of other boards. Well, it doesn't really matter if they actually are successful and the net number of boards goes down.
Well, it did for sure in Argentina. They cut like the number of ministries by half or something. I don't know where they're standing at right now, but
is there any progress with that?
Yeah, so they started out with 18. They cut it down to like 8. I don't know if this one technically counts as one. He is in the cabinet, so he has a small team. It's Federico Sturzenegger, and he knows pretty much everything he seems to know everything about the state, which is really interesting. It's like some of the free staters that know all the laws and they know where to where we can try to change the laws. He knows seemingly everything about the state, and they're deregulating everything from financial instruments to imports, exports, to transportation. It just goes on. And it's like every single week there's something new that they're doing, or even every single day sometimes.
Is it legal to have a pet squirrel there?
You know what? Squirrels, they don't have squirrels in Argentina.
Oh, what? I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's bizarre, yeah. So when my father-in-law...
Do they have like chipmunks or something?
I don't believe they have any of those animals. Now, there was a couple of squirrels that came as an invasive species. So, there's this town that has squirrels as but...
they're going to have to take care of that, because if it's the North American gray squirrel, they are very hardy, and they will disrupt other rodents.
I like them.
Well, they have a problem with them in Europe because the American squirrels got to Europe as pets, and they're just decimating decimating literally means to reduce by a tenth. So they're doing worse than that. But they're destroying the red squirrels, habitats.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways.
I don't know. I feel like stuff like that just happens. Oh, well.
That's true. My father-in-law, when he came to the United States, never saw a squirrel.
Wow.
So,
I didn't even consider that. Squirrels are so like they are in every single state in the United States, and so what's the word I'm looking for? Like
ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous. That when I said something about squirrels in Argentina, like my assumption was there are squirrels everywhere. Like seriously, it's like kind of a shocking revelation to me.
They must just not be anywhere in South America. Is that it?
Well, there's the Mexican ground squirrel. Oh wait, that's North America too.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's pretty close. So
Yeah,
some of those probably
you should look at how squirrel habitats. I'm sure there's some graph somewhere. I'm not sure how far south they go, but
the real reason that I brought up the squirrels was because you were talking about, oh, they're like free staters that know all of the laws and what should be taken down next. And I got Tom Mannion to put in a bill last term, which it didn't pass or anything, that was I wanted him to just legalize monkey pets. And then a bunch of other people on Twitter were like, hey, we also are falling behind. Like I think it's Michigan is really good about pets, and also like North Carolina really good about pets. We're falling behind other states in kangaroo ownership and blah blah these other things, and it became this whole bill where he wanted to legalize like multiple different exotic animals as pets. And obviously funny. The reason I brought it up, the other reason is because there was Peanut the squirrel that we talked about 2 days ago, that on October 30th, his family's house was raided. They took his pet squirrel and killed it. The cops did. And I don't know, I just brought that up halfway as a joke, but also because like that's the kind of stuff that goes on here. I bet that kind of stuff is going on. Like anyone who can get in Malay's ear, like being like, oh yeah, like, and if you look at this, like this will make us all just a little bit freer if you get rid of this law and that law. And that is so great that they have a president there that's willing to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the more interesting thing to me about the squirrel thing is it's like, I mean, how does the government have time to go after the squirrel people when there's still all these people out there from January 6th that haven't been brought to justice? No, but seriously, like, do they really just don't have anything better to do? They really go out of the way to target, the people who aren't causing any trouble.
I know,
just to make examples.
Because they're
But
inept.
I mean, like, if you just want to rape and kill, you can get away with that all day long.
Exactly, and they're terrified of scary actual criminals, and they will just give all these excuses about why it's too hard. For, like in Ian's case, where they were legitimately saying, "Oh, the reason we didn't go after the actual scammers is because it's too difficult. They're in other countries. You realize that's too hard for us, right?" As if that is a excuse to go after Ian instead.
That didn't stop them from going after Ver.
Yeah,
he's in another country.
That's really true. Yeah.
No, it's all just about control. I mean, it really is. Like I used to make these sort of like arguments, like, oh well, rationally they must be doing it for this reason or that reason, and the state is just it's not good because it's inefficient and the incentives aren't aligned. But now it's just become so clear to me over the past like 5-6 years that no, they are actually evil. A lot of them are. Maybe not everybody, but there is definitely people at the top that are just purely evil.
People at the top are evil, and people at the bottom are just dumb and easily used by them. That's so obvious to me now, too.
It's easy to manipulate people when they think they're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
That's what religion does. It manipulates people to think they're doing good, and that's what the state is. It's a religion. It's a violent religion.
I really think that about like all the public school teachers and stuff. I don't think the average public school teacher is like actually evil. I'm pretty sure that most of them, at least, just think like they're doing something so good and selfless by being a teacher and teaching all these things. And these people's parents wouldn't even teach them about evolution because they're Christians. So I'm doing such a good thing, just or whatever.
They do say stuff like that. I met some teachers who were saying things like that. And then, but one of the teachers was like, "Oh, the kids are so stupid," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Wait, you're a teacher. You're not supposed to talk like that." And she was explaining how like, "Oh, the kids are so stupid and this and this and this." I was like, "Wait. You're the teacher, so if they're stupid, isn't it because of you?"
Yeah.
Right? I mean, isn't the theory that you're there to make them smarter?
Well, she's probably like, "Well, I'm trying, but like the parents are so dumb. You don't understand. Like they need
and who
us.
raised them? I mean, we're so many generations into a public education. How do I want to say that? A publicly educated society. There we go. You can tell I didn't pass my schooling though, but we're so far into it. It's like you could basically blame it on everything. It's like the reason why everything's wrong.
Seriously, I keep bringing that up whenever we talk about juries. It's like juries are the worst system now than they ever have been because of the public school system. Like, it's not fair that the government gets to educate, quote unquote, your peers, indoctrinate them, make them be the type of person that they want, and then those are, quote, your peers that are the jury against you when you're in trial. It makes them immediately, they are more geared towards being for the government. They have literally indoctrinated that into everyone in society. And earlier when we were talking about public school in some way, one thing I wanted to say is that public school is all about just getting people to obey the rules. And when I was a kid, I'll try to quickly tell the story, but there was this time when we were all getting punished, like teachers do this all the time. We were all getting punished as in not being allowed to talk, the lights were off type of thing, because one group of like little younger boys, because I was in 3rd grade, one group of boys at a table wouldn't stop talking, and I was sitting there like thinking to myself, it's not fair. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm always good. I'm like a star student. I'm constantly good, and I never do anything wrong, but yet I always get punished because like other people are doing something wrong. And I was sitting there in silence, and I am looking right in front of me. I have it so clear in my mind on one of those boards a teacher made, and it said like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it was the rules. The top said the rules. And in my brain, I literally said this in my head, and I remember it so clear. I said, it's so simple. You just follow the rules. It's so simple. And that was like I was being mind controlled and like actually tortured.
I remember being one of those rule followers too in my own personal life, and now here I am being an anarchist on talk radio.
Yep, that was when I was making that conclusion in my head.
But I do want to get back to any more parallels we have with Milei and Trump, or with the situation or whatever. I mean, definitely they had a deep state down there, and we have one up here. But one thing I was going to say is I think a lot of people, what happened is the people who are running this system have gotten so lazy and bad at it. What they're supposed to do is, like, yeah, these are the rules, you're supposed to follow them, but they've let all of the rule followers down by showing them how little they care about the rules. And that's what's like poking a lot of holes in the system right now and causing it to fail. Because all of these conservative Republican types who now don't trust the legal system anymore, you know, that's because the legal system really went out of its way to not follow any of the rules. So
that's such a good point.
Yeah, they're really undermining themselves. I know for me with the Milei thing, I was just thinking, like, I mean, I feel like if he's going to turn stuff around, he's got to basically do what he's doing down there. But you know, I don't know. Maybe it's just not possible up here because the system is just completely different.
Yeah, I think that they're going to have a little bit harder time, I think, to actually cut things up here than in Argentina. And part of that is Milei had a lot more control over the executive branch, and Milei can pick his own cabinet without going through Congress. So actually, I'm actually somebody that believes that the president should be able to pick his own cabinet without having it approved by the Senate. I realize I kind of get that they're talking about checks and balances, though, but you know, if you're the part of the executive branch and you're hiring your own people, I don't know why you have to go through the Senate. And Milei was able to hire all of his own people, some people that would probably be very controversial, in the because they're libertarians in their government, who, as we know, he has a very weak government. So, and in doing so, Milei was able to reduce the amount of political appointees by about half. So I don't think Trump just has that total ability. I think a lot of his power actually has to go through Congress. And
when he makes his picks, do they actually have to be approved by?
They do.
Oh,
they do. That's why they think, many people think that won't actually be approved.
I should know this, but does the president solely nominate them, or if he leaves a post unfilled, can Congress just fill it for him?
I'm not sure.
Well, more coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Don't go anywhere. You can call 603-283-6160 to get in on the conversation with us. We're talking about Elon Musk, Trump, Milei, and all of the different comparisons between the deep state there and the deep state here. But you can bring up whatever you want. It's 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on this, the final day of campaigning. Trump has been spending the day in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. The former president is asking people to get out to vote as soon as possible.
Just show up and bring your vote. And if you have somebody else that got a little lazy, bring that person too. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
Meanwhile, Harris has been hitting multiple locations across Pennsylvania.
Over these next 24 hours, let's enjoy this moment to knock on a neighbor's door and in their face, even if we've not met them, know that we have a lot that we care about in common. Let's be intentional about building community, about building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Kate Fisher has more from Washington on the final day of campaigning.
Trump will also be in North Carolina and will keep up his tradition of holding his last rally in Michigan. Harris plans to crisscross the Keystone State, ending her day with a star-studded event at the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Pollsters say the race is still too close to call as this tumultuous election campaign enters its final day, with the two candidates offering starkly different visions for America. 78 million people have already cast their ballots.
Officials in Spain say they understand people's frustrations after Spain's king was pelted with mud on a visit to one of the towns devastated by last week's flooding. Nearly 220 people are known to have died, with dozens more missing in and around the city of Valencia. Samuel Romero is a civil engineer in the area. He says volunteers have been working tirelessly.
We need to clean so many houses. We need to clean so many businesses. More people we will need once we need to rebuild all this. But what we need is big machinery, because we need to move all the stuff to lorries in order to clean the streets first, and then to put some water in there and start cleaning all the pavement.
Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, claimed her second term with 55% of votes after a closely fought and tense election that saw allegations of Russian meddling. Ever since Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
Sandu's victory is significant for Moldova as it continues to push for EU integration. Her rival, Alexander Stoyanoglu, was backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists and had called for closer ties with Moscow. During the election, the president's national security advisor warned there had been interference from Russia that could potentially distort the outcome.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. We would love to have anybody who wants to call in and talk about whatever is on their mind to do just that. 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. And I'd like to thank, Crash, I want to say Crash for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Crash went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Crash and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. amps.freetalklive.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Colin.
And I think I really fixed Riley's mic in the last segment. So a lot of people were saying that he was turned way down, so I tried to turn him up a little bit more.
Hopefully my audio is better.
Hopefully it is better. And
I tried to turn him on.
What the?
Oh my god, dude.
I tried to turn him up.
Insane.
Man.
That's Alana's job.
Yeah, that's not your job. We have a caller on the line. We have Scott from here in New Hampshire. And Scott really follows the Malay stuff in Argentina, the Javier Malay stuff. And did you have anything else that is just like big new news with Malay going down there that you wanted to talk about, Scott?
Well, since the last time I was on, which was actually March, it's been a long time.
That's your fault, not mine.
I know, it's mine. Well, the biggest thing is he passed his legislation after 7 months, and mainly because the political parties were just shocked how popular he still was, and they were set to get absolutely destroyed in the next election. So they're like, oh gosh, we just have to do this. So they passed his legislation, which will allow him to fire a lot more employees, government employees, privatize a lot of Soviet-style businesses. Not a lot, but a significant number of Soviet-style businesses they have. He's already announced he's going to privatize the trains. He's shutting down a couple of them that are just so worthless. And he's also deregulating the labor market. So the labor market just awful. You can't fire anybody. They're extremely strict labor market. So he made it much more flexible, and he's allowed to do more deregulation. Like that's why he started this Ministry of Deregulation and State Transformation, so that they can close the state. Some fun things is he abolished their IRS in Argentina. Yeah, they call it AFIP.
Be done.
It can be done. And this was within the last few weeks, and the riots at this place, or the employees are so mad. It's just so pleasurable to see some IRS type government agents like so upset they're getting fired that they're like making a big scene, like they're like doing protests and stuff. That's great to see.
Yeah.
Now I had heard that like the rental markets the prices had dropped down by like a third or something like that. Is that right?
That's right, because they had national rent control where you couldn't basically raise your rent. I think it was you couldn't raise your rent beyond a certain amount, and so that obviously restricted the supply of rents. And once he did that, just everybody wanted to become a renter. It's something that once you get rid of it, it's immediate impact. And immediately
have there been any other really big like impacts on the economy? Not just, obviously, like you're cutting this department, cutting that department, firing people. Like that's like easy to see. Like you see it because it existed and then it doesn't, or the people had jobs and then they don't. But how much like economic turnaround has there been down there in ways that are noticeable?
Yeah, so even some mainstream sources are like surprised at the results in Argentina, because their inflation is the lowest it's been in 3 years, and it was hyperinflating when Milei took office. It was on the verge, or you could argue it was hyperinflating. It was going at 1% a day, which is 17,000% a year. If you accumulate it 1% a day, and it was really, really bad. And within 10 months, it's right around. It went from about 30% to now it's 3% a month. So we're talking about like it's dropping like a brick. And what is surprising to like modern monetary theorists and Keynesians is the economy looks like it's rebounding. So their activity is actually increasing. So they have lower inflation, and the activity in Malay, after it was like a month or two that Malay's popularity in the polls had dropped a little bit. We had finally dropped under 50%, and now it's like way over 50% again. And it's just because everybody's seeing that the economy is getting better. That it's so much less stressful to have. The inflation would be stressful for us that they have, but it's compared to what they were having. It's an incredible improvement, and people can actually live a little bit. And the fact that it's getting better, they're very positive about the future. And so you have like, I've heard reports that like the vibe in Argentina is improving dramatically. There's reports that they're expected to have 5% growth in 2025. So the people like Malay is actually increasing his popularity as the economy gets better, and people are seeing some actually real improvements. And people will say, "Oh, the poverty's worse. The poverty's grown." But the last quarter, the poverty has been actually going down.
Yeah, in what way would it even grow? I mean, obviously, there's all the government sector employees that don't have jobs. But other than that, how else would it? I mean, he didn't cut like the food benefits for the poor people, so that wouldn't be worse.
No, but when you cut government spending a lot, so Malay's cut government spending about 30%. That does go throughout the economy, and you're going to have a little bit of an adjustment there, and their economy was in a recession. Now I'm reading reports that they're actually out of recession right now. So,
I saw that news a little while back. I'm pretty sure you shared on Twitter that was saying that their GDP was above a certain amount for the first time ever.
Yeah, their GDP has been growing month over month. It's still down from last year, but when you cut, but when you cut that much government spending, it's going to be down because government spending is included in GDP.
Yeah.
So, right. So,
well, that's interesting because what you're saying is like, he cut a third of the government, but the GDP is only down by a little bit. So that almost implies that immediately upon cutting that amount, it's almost been completely absorbed in the rest of the economy. That's what that implies, at least, all other things being equal.
So their mining sector is growing, and Argentina has the same mountains as Chile and the same mining capacity, probably more than Chile. And they have like, I can't remember the numbers, but it's like 1/10 the output as Chile, which is much more capitalist country. Their oil, they became their oil. All these people saying Malay is WEF. You should see what they're doing in Europe. Every country in Europe is doing the whole Agenda 2030 thing.
Yeah,
Malay is like totally the opposite. He is like drill baby drill.
That's incredible.
And their oil and gas sector is going crazy. And I believe their agriculture is doing pretty well. So it's just all in all, and I think we're seeing a little bit like investment in their automotive industry, in their industry. Oh, another thing Malay did is he made it much more enticing to investors. So he made it much better deal to investors. Oh, and Colin would like this. He has done a whole big money laundering scheme.
Really?
Well,
So
when you say it like
basically-
that,
Colin would like this.
Colin would like it. It's a money
They call it a
laundering
blunt-
scheme.
Well,
What do you mean?
Colin, are you into money laundering?
they call it a blanquero. It's in Spanish. It's blanquero.
Okay.
But, and it translated as money laundering.
Oh.
But it's probably not exactly that. It's basically you're allowed to put money into the banking system without any questions asked. So you can, and Malay is actually we're trying to get rid of all of the details about this too, so that nobody can come back in the future and try to tax these people. So
So it's more like
basically
a Swiss style privacy type thing.
Right. I would say it's more like a Swift style privacy thing, which there was a certain period of time to do it. So
okay.
They basically said you have this period to just put your money in the system, and it's been wildly successful. They've added I can't remember the number. It's a large number of dollars and foreign and currency into their banking system, which
Has there been any news about any sort of like brain drain into the country from other places? Because I know there's actually it's really hard to find. Like, there's not like articles written about this in like the New York Times or anything like that, but I find little blips of this around the internet regarding Mexico and the fact that during COVID, so many people from around the world moved there that they now have these huge neighborhoods in like Mexico City, for instance, that are just, foreigners there, and they escaped Europe and they escaped the US, and they're doing all sorts of business down there, and there's a huge, essentially a brain drain. The only person I've heard like kind of I don't even want to say mainstream, but Jeffrey Tucker surprisingly has mentioned it. But I'm wondering if they're getting something like that down there in Argentina.
I think so. I think it will. I think it will happen. There's a lot of people waiting and seeing. So there's a lot of banks and business investment that they're getting some business investment, but a lot of people are waiting to see specifically how the midterm elections go in Argentina. Specifically, they're waiting about a year or so. The reason why is Malay almost was ruined twice, and this is something I didn't bring up, but the Congress actually passed they passed is retirement reform, but that entailed just spending a lot of money on retirements.
Yeah. Wow.
And then they also passed education, which entailed spending a lot of money on education. And this would have destroyed Malay's scheme, because Malay's deficit, he wants a budget surplus. He wants deficit zero. He's been running budget surpluses. They had a 5% budget deficit when he started, and Malay now has a budget surplus, which is insane. That's like, it'd be like cutting well over $1 trillion out of 5% of GDP, by the way. That'd be like cutting way more than $1 trillion out of the U.S. in like a month. U.S. budget in like a month. So
something that made me think about this earlier today was while listening to an interview, and it was Trump, and he was talking about the cutting government stuff, and he's, of course it's like Trump, so he's like Elon, he's so smart, he lands these rockets, he lands them upside down, whatever he wants, he can put it anywhere in the world, and he's like, I want that guy, he's gonna do it, he says he can cut it $2 trillion out of the budget, that would give us a surplus. And so I was just like, I'm hearing that, and I'm like, that's really crazy. I mean, like, I wish that such a thing could happen, but could it here? I don't know.
Could we have a surplus when, does the debt impact that at all? Or is it just exactly how much they're taking in and how much they're spending?
I don't know if I completely understand what you're saying,
Like,
but
doesn't the debt being in trillions affect that, or does it not?
well. So
the
there's the deficit and the debt, and there's the interest. Yeah. So I think what he's saying is they would cut so much government spending that there would be a surplus, which would mean they'd be paying down the debt. That's what I understand. I think $2 trillion might be what's required to do that.
Yeah, that's a huge number. That's like what Argentina did, and that's a huge number. The United States, and the big thing that this enabled Malay to do is, and would enable us to do in the U.S. is cut money printing, because we print money to finance the debt, the deficit, because you can do it a couple ways. You can you have taxes, and then you have your government spending, just like your household. And if you take out more, if you spend more than you take in revenue, or you take in income, you accumulate debt. And the U.S. government does it by selling it to foreigners or to U.S. citizens. But the demand for that doesn't totally. The demand for that. There's not enough demand for all.
Yeah. There have been a couple of recent Treasury sellings in the U.S. Where the what do they call them? The accredited buyers. I'm trying to remember the name, but those what?
That's who buys it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's only accredited buyers.
So there's the first sale, which goes to those people, and there's a secondary market, but those people are supposed to buy it if nobody else does, is what I'm trying to get at. I forget the name of those people, but they were forced to have to buy the debt because there's no other buyers right now.
It's a pretty nefarious system. What happens is they buy the debt
and resell it.
They sell it to the Fed for a profit.
Yeah.
So it's basically just an easy profit for them. So they buy the debt for the U.S. government and they sell it to the Fed for a profit. Now the Fed was for a while the quantitative easing, just buying the debt without going through the banking system. But that's why these banks get really rich and stuff, because it's just like, it's an easy just return because you're buying it and selling it to the Fed. And the Fed, how they do it is they just print money out of thin air, the money that doesn't exist. Basically, they can buy these bonds.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is
they send new money that's created. That's when we're talking about printing money. It's actually not printing it. It's like digitally.
Yeah, it's digitally printing it, but everybody says printing as a euphemism or whatever for it.
Right.
It makes sense as a euphemism because, we hold paper dollars at times. And so when you have a printer printing paper dollars and it's creating more money, it makes sense to have printers going as a euphemism.
Yep, and I mean, that's how it used to be done.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about, caller?
Well, yeah, well, I'll just say this. That's allowed Malay having budget surpluses is the reason why inflation is gone well. That, and he fixed the central bank had this terrible Ponzi scheme. They were doubling the money supply every month. So fixing the deficit and fixing that allowed the inflation to drop drastically in ways that the world is just like amazed. And, I think these things are getting people like Trump's attention.
Yeah, I mean they met and he called him brother.
And you see that Malay, despite all of these cuts, is still pretty popular, and so that's got to get some people's attention. That despite the fact that he's massively cutting the government and he's causing pain to certain people, right? He's still popular. So that's got to be to some of these people that are a little bit more reform-minded, like maybe Trump. Trump can do it, and he's great, and like gets credit for it. I think he could potentially do it, or do it to a certain extent, and mainly because just how Milei is he's still a popular guy in Argentina and popular around the world too.
Speaking of the inflation here in the United States, it is obviously, I mean, everybody knows this, so I'm not saying anything that people don't know.
Well,
but it's
the
obvious.
leftists don't know it. They say it's at 2.1%.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, how could you be so stupid? So today I was down in Massachusetts and I went to I was looking for a place to get some breakfast because I had time to, and I was just checking to see this place, do they have omelets? Because that's what I wanted to eat. And so I just, I Google Maps, places nearby. Okay, here's a place. Okay, look at the menu. Okay, yeah, they have omelets there. So I went there, but they put the menu in front of me that they had there. All the items were the same. The menu that was on Google Maps was from 6 years ago, and the prices were like $6.99, $7.99. They're all now $11.99.
Wow, for one omelet.
And so that's almost a doubling for some of those items in the price that they had. And how people could act like there's not inflation, is beyond me. It's especially in food, but in all sorts of items.
Almost everyone agrees that there's inflation at this point. Even I see leftists using it as a talking point. They just don't know what they're talking about, but everyone agrees there is inflation. It's just seriously, leftists actually believe that business owners are just raising prices because they're mean.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how they all become mean all at the same time.
Yeah.
And they were nice during the Trump presidency, though.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. And that is a really weird thing to consider. But for whatever reason, even Kamala is actually making them pushing this idea by saying that she will lower grocery prices and everything by making it illegal to price gouge. So she's trying to make people, she's putting that idea in people's heads that inflation is happening right now, groceries are expensive, and it's because of price gouging. That's so stupid. I feel even if she got in office and makes a law like that, a law against price gouging, it's just going to affect if there's a natural disaster and you raise prices, that sucks, and that's really bad.
Well, it's just going to cause shortages.
Yeah, it would just cause shortages during national disasters. But I'm pretty sure they don't even realize that that's what price gouging is actually referring to. They just think that now that there are businesses Walmart is just bringing up the prices of their crappy food because...
what they're saying they're going to do, even if they're not using the right word, is price controls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then she's also trying to step away from the word price controls because a bunch of people actually were hey, you're being a communist. Seriously, if she started trying to step away from that term afterwards. Yeah. Because, people were actually realizing, and wait a second, that's not a good thing. You're going to tell businesses how much they have to put their prices or their things for sale for?
It's funny. It's funny they always blame the business owner. But, why has anybody thought about this? If the prices on all the food items go up at the restaurant, that means you're going to tip more too, because you're tipping by a percentage. So really, why don't we just say it's a conspiracy of all the waitresses to get more money?
Because their money is worthless.
No, I know. I'm just having fun with it.
I know that too. Well,
but now the callers know because we spelled it out for them.
Well, thank you for the call, Scott. It's always interesting to hear what's going on down there because there isn't a place on the whole entire planet where there is actually a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist as the president. And it's just so interesting. So many people say oh, he can't do this and that. He won't be able to do all this stuff he says he's going to do. But he's just been having to do it really slowly because he's working with this terrible, disgusting system. And I think that's kind of a lesson to be learned. So many libertarians hate on Milei supporters just because they're he's part of the state. How autistic. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by that treasury. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on this, the final day of campaigning. Trump has been spending the day in North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. The former president is asking people to get out to vote as soon as possible.
Just show up and bring your vote. And if you have somebody else that got a little lazy, bring that person too. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
Meanwhile, Harris has been hitting multiple locations across Pennsylvania.
Over these next 24 hours, let's enjoy this moment to knock on a neighbor's door and in their face, even if we've not met them, know that we have a lot that we care about in common. Let's be intentional about building community, about building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Kate Fisher has more from Washington on the final day of campaigning.
Trump will also be in North Carolina and will keep up his tradition of holding his last rally in Michigan. Harris plans to crisscross the Keystone State, ending her day with a star-studded event at the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Pollsters say the race is still too close to call as this tumultuous election campaign enters its final day, with the two candidates offering starkly different visions for America. 78 million people have already cast their ballots.
Officials in Spain say they understand people's frustrations after Spain's king was pelted with mud on a visit to one of the towns devastated by last week's flooding. Nearly 220 people are known to have died, with dozens more missing in and around the city of Valencia. Samuel Romero is a civil engineer in the area. He says volunteers have been working tirelessly.
We need to clean so many houses. We need to clean so many businesses. More people we will need once we need to rebuild all this. But what we need is big machinery, because we need to move all the stuff to lorries in order to clean the streets first, and then to put some water in there and start cleaning all the pavement.
Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, claimed her second term with 55% of votes after a closely fought and tense election that saw allegations of Russian meddling. Ever since Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
Sandu's victory is significant for Moldova as it continues to push for EU integration. Her rival, Alexander Stoyanoglu, was backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists and had called for closer ties with Moscow. During the election, the president's national security advisor warned there had been interference from Russia that could potentially distort the outcome.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. As America's election wraps up, will the gender gap in support between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump prove to be decisive? More women say they are determined to vote for Harris than men are for Trump, and in early voting, women have participated in greater numbers than men, fueled, the Democrats believe, by a desire to protect abortion rights in America. Michael Yaki is a former senior advisor to Nancy Pelosi.
Well, I think you're going to be seeing it, especially in the areas where there's a state referendum on it. There's one in Florida. There's one in Arizona. There's one in Montana. You know, Kamala Harris did a little drop-by in Florida not too long ago. And I think that measure, the initiative to sort of end the 6-week abortion ban, is gaining a lot of steam and may have a knock-on effect for Kamala Harris's campaign. This is not unlike what the Republicans did in 2004 when they put on a bunch of competitive state ballots, anti-gay marriage measures, which at that time were fairly popular in a lot of conservative states. They used that as a means to generate turnout from the Christian right. And I think that we're seeing here is one of the largest in history gender gaps in voting that we'll be seeing. And it's going to be interesting to look at the numbers at when the polls close and everyone's sort of dissecting what happens, at how big that gender gap is.
And that gap, some polls suggest, is as high as 19%, even in this fiercely competitive race between Harris and Trump. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, the US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on the final day of campaigning. Officials in Valencia say they understand people's frustration after more than 220 people died in devastating flooding last week. And Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president has claimed her second term with 55% of the votes. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
After notifying students that there will be no awesome events happening on campus this weekend, Hamilton College Activity Board Coordinator Jessica Wilson from the class of 2015 spoke to Onion reporters about the disappointingly empty days ahead.
On behalf of the entire Campus Activities Board, I would like to truly apologize for failing to live up to the standards expected of us from everyone on campus. And the fact is, we let the school down.
Wilson said that while the board is usually proficient at booking plenty of cool events for all students to participate in, the upcoming weekend will have no interesting lectures, no wrestling match against Amherst, no acoustic coffee house, and no outdoor movie screening of Silver Linings Playbook.
We tried our best to organize a foam party in Dunham Quad for Friday night, but all the foam machines were rented, and we failed. This falls on us. We realize we don't deserve your trust yet, nor do we expect it, but we'll do everything we can to restore your confidence in us, starting with a comedy hypnotist show on Thursday at Minor Theater. Tickets are $5.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And Riley's actually wearing his...
I am. I'm wearing my Free Talk Live hoodie from LibertyMinded.com.
Yes, I have 2 t-shirts and like 3 hoodies, if you count mine that I took from Ian. They're all from LibertyMinded.com.
You stole from Ian?
Yes.
Okay.
And I seriously wear those like all the time. That's like my number one favorite like zip-up hoodie to wear. And I also have the only LRN.FM t-shirt. That's what the guy said. He said that I'm the only person who's ever bought the LRN.FM t-shirt. So I have the only LRN.FM t-shirt. It's a red t-shirt and it has the logo on it.
Wow.
I love it.
I feel like that's not true. I feel like I've seen it before.
Maybe you've just seen the logo before on like walls and stuff.
I don't know.
And besides, he might have meant the only one from him. Like maybe somebody else made one.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, not that that's a really good thing to brag about, but LRN.FM, it still exists. It's just currently only Free Talk Live refeeds. No other shows play on it. That doesn't mean that it might not get like brought back to where it used to be if Ian gets out of prison, but because it's not gone, but Ian got rid of like the LRN.FM's Patreon. He didn't want people to have to to be like supporting it while it's not really doing what it used to do and stuff like that. I still have LRN.FM and Free Talk Live, but with you on the show tonight on Free Talk Live, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Colin.
And we wanted to start talking about a story here from the Wall Street Journal. It says, America's men are falling even further behind. Men in their 20s and early 30s are much more likely than female peers to live with their parents, and many say they feel aimless and isolated. In Spanish, parents call it encaminado, making sure your children are on the path to an independent adulthood. What a specific word.
It's just in-pathed.
In-pathed?
Like path.
Being on a path?
Yeah.
Being on your purpose.
That's a really cool thing. I mean, empath is not a word in English. Empath is not a word in English.
Yeah,
so
I
that's
know.
That's what I'm pointing out. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's cool that they have like such a specific word for that.
Well, I mean, you could make up any word. Well, whatever.
Well, it doesn't sound made up in Spanish.
No, it might not be. I don't know.
Out of Dan and Joanna Moreno's 4 grown children, only their daughter is encaminada. She recently graduated from business school and got engaged. The Morenos, 3 adult sons, are still sleeping in their Miami childhood bedrooms. The younger 2 dropped out of college and the oldest never went. All 3 are single. Their only work experience is with the family business. Something has gone amiss here, says their father, Dan, who owns the repair chain Flamingo Appliance Service. We love them. We love having them around, but that's not how you build life. This is a little weird that this is how this article starts out. It's like, I would be so sad if my dad and mom got interviewed about what a failure I was.
Well, it's funny because they say they work for the business. I mean, is it
that's true.
Was it? Wait, how's that a failure? I mean,
I don't know.
Doesn't one of them take over the business?
Eventually, yeah. Is that not working?
As opposed to what? Like they go out and start their own business, and the dad sells the business they have when he goes to retire.
Has no employees because no one wants to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, well,
really weird.
Yeah. It's funny too because it's like the daughter, the daughter, she is out and she went to
college.
Well, and she has a husband. I'm like, well, that guy didn't fall behind.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Unless she's married to a man or a lesbian. I don't know if it said.
My question
said she's engaged.
My question is how relevant, how relevant is this whole men falling behind movement to feminism? Are feminists contributing to this because they want to smash the patriarchy? They want to demean men. They say that men are horrible people and we got to do something about it. We can't have toxic masculinity, and men get tied in a knot because they don't know what to do for their purpose. They don't want to feel like they're harming women or whatever.
Yeah, well, I wonder, I don't want the society in the future to be mostly women make all the money, do all the jobs, and then men are being cared for. That's not how things are supposed to work.
Right.
It's not. I'm supposed to be cared for when Ian gets out of jail.
Hopefully he gets out soon.
I was mostly joking, but I do really think that legitimately there are certain differences between men and women.
There's so much to say about all of this because it's the men don't really, the younger men don't really have that much motivation, but at the same time, you look at the kind of food that they've been eating their entire lives and what that does to your body and how your body doesn't have energy and motivation in that way. Then you talk about the fact that they go
thing
through.
Got huge in the last 2 decades, and low carb is having no energy for your body.
But most people aren't doing that. Like, if they were doing that...
That is a huge thing right now. Like, so many men I know are actually doing keto and talking to me about how intelligent it is to be keto.
I doubt these guys are, though. I mean, everybody I know...
No, it's a huge thing.
No, I know, but everybody I know who pays enough attention to that probably has other stuff. You know, these guys probably just eating Cheetos. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, those things also damage your body's ability to make energy with like the high.
But anyways, you have
fats.
that, and that's just the physical. But then you have, they've gone through public education probably, and there, I mean, they talk the boys down all the time. The whole entire public education system isn't really designed for boys, anyways. They're energetic and they're penalized for that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the girls want to please the teacher, and so they do all the things that they're supposed to do.
And just like the kind of schoolwork, I've always thought that like girls, every like I went to so many different schools, and it always seemed like the more intelligent people were the girls, like in almost even in math classes sometimes. And I think it's just like somewhat more, it's more of a feminine thing to do those things. Like,
well, I mean, and I wouldn't say that they're more intelligent. I'm not saying the opposite
either.
either.
No, I wasn't saying they were.
I know.
I was saying I thought that when I thought.
Well, yeah, because they're the ones who are answering
that.
all the questions and who are like doing all the homework and all that.
Yeah.
But that's not, that's not really a mark of intelligence, obviously.
We do have a caller on the phone, though. I think he wants to talk about this subject, possibly. Turd Ferguson in Pennsylvania, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Riley sounds pretty good. I'm glad his mic is fixed.
Yeah, I did exactly what you were saying, but I thought you meant on the board I was showing you, but it's called the cut boost.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Everybody else's was turned up to a certain amount, and then his was turned way down. That must have been an accident, so thanks for helping with that.
No problem. So I actually agree with Riley since I was actually able to hear him. And I don't know how many people actually know about this, but I've actually figured out a long time ago through basic economics, which is how I think of everything. I'm sure you guys know that by now, that corporations actually socially engineered feminism to drive down the value of American labor. And I'll tell you how that happened. It might take me a second to explain, but if you bear with me.
Go ahead.
So if I am a corporation in the 1950s and American politicians are significantly harder to buy off than they are now, and I want to increase my profit, well, what do I do? Well, what I would do is I would socially engineer a movement to bring a bunch of new people into the workforce, knowing that the demand for labor would stay the same. Supply and demand is, of course, as we all know, a real market dynamic. So all I have to do is trick a bunch of women into believing that working is better than raising children and staying at home, helping your man accomplish his mission. And then all of a sudden, I've got millions of new people flooding into the workforce while the demand for labor has stayed the same, putting downward pressure on wages in this country. Are we all are you following so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's actually how all this happened. It started with the corporations socially engineering the feminist movement to basically create their own scam.
There's actually a lot more to it than even that, because if you have a stay-at-home wife, like, she doesn't have to have nearly as many outfits, like, for going to work every day, right? Because she just, some days she might not even leave the house.
In the way that women overconsume products because they just whenever they leave the house.
But now you have to have 2 cars.
They want everyone to see their Stanley Cups, and then there are these accessories for their Stanley Cups.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
all kinds of different reasons to buy more and more things when you're more of a public person.
I mean, in a way, they doubled the consumerism too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they definitely doubled demand for a lot of household items. And by the way, as divorce became a more common thing, well, then they were able to sell, more toasters and microwaves and beds and mattresses and televisions and all that kind of stuff. You don't need one anymore. Wow. You need 2, but the divorce rate goes up, of course.
Yep.
But really the big scam behind all this, the biggest scam, was really the way that they were able to use it to devalue American labor. I mean, that's really kind of at the top of the pyramid of all this. And I think as time went on and feminism became more and more of sort of a man-hating, my schmorshins type movement, men kind of were at a loss because companies, after they had, already devalued American labor, well, now they're actually going to hire women who, many of them are actually less qualified for the job than male counterparts, so they're actually able to pay them less than they would men, and that's devalued American labor even more. And now, in many, it might be the majority now of metropolitan areas in the United States, women are actually out earning men. So now
I would say they're being outpaid, which is a different thing than out earning.
Right. Well, they're I'm saying on an hourly basis, they're now getting paid more, not because necessarily they're worth more, but because there's less men in the workforce. And so now when you do the math and you get the average, women are now, the wage gap is now completely non-existent, if there ever was one at all.
So it used to be people would always say, did you know that women make certain amount?
They still
less?
say that.
Well,
they won't shut up about it.
Well, the thing is, they will say, did you know that women make this much less on the dollar than men do? But they weren't accounting for the fact that it's not apples and oranges. They're basically comparing like a bunch of high-paying jobs that only men do to, like, they took just the average and said women make less money and made it seem like one man and one woman doing the same exact job from the same company, and they're just saying, we're going to pay the men $12 and we're going to pay the woman, I don't know, some certain amount less, and that's not how it was.
Which is of course absurd, because if you can get the same amount of work and you get a 25% discount, that's all I would ever hire, right? So that's obviously not the answer, you know?
Exactly.
It's
and corporations actually loved that lie because now they get the chance to virtue signal and devalue labor even more, because now they win over all the single mother fat housewives, cat ladies in the world, by saying that they've fired all their men workforce and they've hired a bunch of women to take their places, except they're paying them way less. And at the same time, they've devalued American labor even more so. So this whole entire thing has just been a win-win situation for the corporations and a lose-lose situation for the American people on several different levels.
Well,
and every single level, the corporations win and the people lose.
Well, what is the solution, Turd?
Well, So that's a good question. So I don't know if I'm smart enough to have the solution. I mean, I've definitely identified the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The best way, in my opinion, is to just build a culture around pro-masculine men who have purpose and mission, and to just convince, because it's primarily people on the left, unfortunately, convince people on the left, and primarily the fat, overweight, single mother cat ladies on the left, that they've been fed a lie their entire lives and that they need to drop it now. And that's a tough sell.
Because, it's especially a tough sell, let's say, to a woman who's in that position, who's, let's say, past the age of 40, because she doesn't really have any other option at that point.
And she has to face that she may have, missed up. Lots of women truly think, like, being ugly and disagreeable and when you're young is fine and cool for some reason, and they don't understand why they can't find a boyfriend. I don't understand how they don't understand it. Like, ever since I was young, I was like, I want boys to like me. Step one, long hair.
Yeah, they think that, but even then they're wrong, because when they're young, I mean, they can try to kind of like, dye their hair blue and do all that stupid stuff, but the fact of the matter is they're still young and fertile. So to a man in his late 20s, early 30s, even early 40s, the young girl in her early 20s who's trying to be unattractive is still far more attractive than the fat cat lady in her mid 30s.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to be a hard sell because they would have to face the fact that they may have like completely effed up and it might be irreversible.
Exactly. Yes, correct. And the other part, and the other side of it is, well, I mean, and a lot of us, freedom-leaning people came from the left. And think about it, when you first kind of woke up, it was probably, and Anna Kasparian specifically from the Young Turks is going through this now. It's very uncomfortable when you
I've seen some of those videos.
I've seen her talking about it.
When you realize you've lived a lie your entire life, it's very uncomfortable. And you think about all the things that you've said in the past, all the things that you've done, all the falsehoods that you've believed, and to see the truth, to sort of see the forest, for the trees, it's just tough after you've lived a life of lies.
I originally came from like the right, but then like even I became a libertarian, and for a few years I started to go a little too left. So I kind of have had both experiences where I've noticed the lies I started to believe from the left.
I think that's true for many of us in this room.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about something, how many Free Talk Live hosts are old single women? None of them. All of the women have husbands or boyfriends, and just none of them are old single women. Like, I feel like you're less likely to want to be in touch with reality if you're that.
As to what like the solution is, I mean, in general, like it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction to say this, but it is almost always true. The answer is to like have freedom and not have regulation, and to not have like interference and things like that. And I think one of the or many of the things that have created this are actually due to the government. So for instance, like there's all of these ways that you could sue a company over like discrimination. So then, okay, let's get an HR department. So you get an HR department. Well, then the HR department, and I literally view HR departments as the equivalent of what they'd have in the communist countries, where they would have a party representative at every big company. And that's kind of what they are. Like HR departments are like the leftist party representative at your company, there to like slowly hire certain kinds of people to take it over, fire certain kinds of people who they don't want there, change the culture, do all this sort of stuff. And so, it's like they've made that and then of course there's even different ways that the government incentivizes it with money, the hiring of women versus men, things like that. But this is what I was kind of saying a minute ago, where I was like, he said they out earn, and I was like, they don't out earn, they're outpaid. There's all sort like every time.
But now you're doing the opposite thing that women used to do when they're saying, did you know men make $0 on the dollar?
All I know is I see these companies that have like all these women employed in them, and like they're really not doing anything, and I'm just like, how is this possible? Like, this can't possibly be real, because if it was a free market, that you wouldn't have that much inefficiency in your company, right? And some examples we can look at is like Twitter. Up. Like Twitter had thousands and thousands of employees, but none of them were doing any actual work.
Yeah.
And so Elon Musk came in and he fired what was the number?
I don't know,
half. It was like more than half, I think.
It was thousands of people, not 1,000.
And they were people who weren't doing anything. So why is it that this company had all of these people there who weren't doing anything? It's pretty crazy. There's so much inefficiency in these, but there's actually some companies I think that just don't even make anything. Like, even to say that they're inefficient.
And then the government, it's got to be way worse than Twitter is.
Oh yeah, that
people
too.
just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right on the whole about that. Yes.
My question for you, Third, is how do we as men find our mission and our purpose?
Oh, that's a great question. So this is what I would recommend, and obviously it's going to be different for everyone. But what I would recommend is do what Harry Brown suggested when you're facing a problem and you really don't know how to solve it. So the first thing I'd recommend, and I read this in a book called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. What you should do is you should sit down in a quiet room with a pen and piece of paper. If you want, you can turn on some music without lyrics, just to kind of help get you focused. And then the way I would go about it was I would start to write down all the things that I was good at, first of all, like really, really good at. And then I would write the things maybe in another column on the other side of the page that I really liked. So I'm really good at, for example, music and making music and audio stuff. And then on the other side of my paper, I might write things like, going to see concerts and hot women and flirting. So I would start to connect. Just by drawing lines to the things on both sides that I could conjoin. You know what I mean? So I like hot girls and I like music. Well, maybe I could turn hot girls into pop stars. So
Right.
that's a good way to find your purpose. And obviously that's not going to be everybody's thing, but I think that's a great way to get started.
Thanks for the feedback, Turd. I'm trying to figure out my mission and purpose, so I appreciate the feedback.
603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up. Call in with whatever is on your mind. It's Free Talk Live.
Video game players love customizing every aspect of their character. One game, Elder Scrolls Online, has set a new bar for character creation by letting players design every organ and cell in their avatar's body.
In Elder Scrolls Online, you get to play as whoever you want to play. You are in control of everything from your character's face to their hair to their arteries. We're not just going to give you some pre-made bones and ligaments. You get to create the musculoskeletal system that's right for you. You can even alter the DNA.
Are all of these changes just cosmetic?
No, not at all. They have a huge effect on game playing. If your character's body has any anatomical flaws, they could die immediately.
Beta testers say that designing every aspect of their character is a compelling experience.
I've been designing my orc's liver for 5 hours now. This is awesome.
Designing the hands is the hardest part. I keep having to look up how all the joints connect.
Players can also press the randomize button to get a completely random collection of body parts.
This is the Onion News Network.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. The US presidential candidates Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are blitzing the key battleground states on this, the final day of campaigning. Trump has been spending the day in North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Michigan. The former president is asking people to get out to vote as soon as possible.
Just show up and bring your vote. And if you have somebody else that got a little lazy, bring that person too. We're just one day away from what will be the most important political event in the history of our country.
Meanwhile, Harris has been hitting multiple locations across Pennsylvania.
Over these next 24 hours, let's enjoy this moment to knock on a neighbor's door and in their face, even if we've not met them, know that we have a lot that we care about in common. Let's be intentional about building community. About building coalitions, about reminding people we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Kate Fisher has more from Washington on the final day of campaigning.
Trump will also be in North Carolina and will keep up his tradition of holding his last rally in Michigan. Harris plans to crisscross the Keystone State, ending her day with a star-studded event at the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia. Pollsters say the race is still too close to call as this tumultuous election campaign enters its final day, with the two candidates offering starkly different visions for America. 78 million people have already cast their ballots.
Officials in Spain say they understand people's frustrations after Spain's king was pelted with mud on a visit to one of the towns devastated by last week's flooding. Nearly 220 people are known to have died, with dozens more missing in and around the city of Valencia. Samuel Romero is a civil engineer in the area. He says volunteers have been working tirelessly.
We need to clean so many houses. We need to clean so many businesses. More people we will need once we need to rebuild all this. But what we need is big machinery, because we need to move all the stuff to lorries in order to clean the streets first, and then to put some water in there and start cleaning all the pavement.
Moldova's incumbent pro-EU president, Maia Sandu, claimed her second term with 55% of votes after a closely fought and tense election that saw allegations of Russian meddling. Ever since Megumi Lim reports from Kiev.
Sandu's victory is significant for Moldova as it continues to push for EU integration. Her rival, Alexander Stoyanoglu, was backed by the pro-Russian Party of Socialists and had called for closer ties with Moscow. During the election, the president's national security advisor warned there had been interference from Russia that could potentially distort the outcome.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And we've been podcasting since podcasts began. Somebody even put on Twitter today, they were like, do people even know that Ian and Mark are some of the most OG podcasters? Like, they were podcasting at the very brink of podcasting. Oh, hold on. Sorry, you're muted. Go ahead.
I don't think people realize that.
Oh, sorry, I actually unmuted the wrong one. Go ahead.
I don't think people realize that because, Free Talk Live has been around so long as a radio show, and yet, they were the first to put MP3 files out with their show because, they wanted to make their content available to anyone who wanted to listen to it. And that was before podcasting really became a thing. And so when podcasting became a thing, they were leading the way, so to speak. I think Free Talk Live has been really at the cutting edge for quite some time.
Yep, that's absolutely true, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So that was nice that somebody called it out today on Twitter. But the thing is, we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45 minute show releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere. It's just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast, so check it out at freetalkcast.com. And with you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Colin.
And we're just going to go straight into the phones. We have an unscreened caller on Free Talk Live. What's your name? Caller, topic, please.
It's your boy.
Oh, it's Skeeter.
Hey, were you listening? This is radio you can't troll.
I'm not trolling. I'm serious.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's worse.
Look, you guys, there is a wage gap. Are you guys blind?
I am, actually, now that you mention it.
There is a wage gap, though. You know the wage gap manifests itself not in the rate of
wage gap you're talking about. How do you prove that?
The wage gap between genders, the gender wage gap.
How did you determine that?
Are you talking about the racial wage gap?
Okay, you have to actually explain what you're talking about.
There is a wage gap between males and females in the workplace.
Are you saying that men make more or women make more?
Yeah, men make more. There's discrimination in the workplace.
How much more do they make, though?
The gap doesn't manifest itself in the rate of pay, but in the proportion of hirees. Right? There's your discrimination.
I'm pretty sure that what we're talking about is legitimately, in this article we're going to go into, it legitimately talks about how there are more women in the workforce than ever, and men being in the workforce is going down. All right, bye. It's so dumb when he doesn't listen, doesn't change his mind in the face of other information. It's just so boring. I don't want to talk to somebody just screaming nothingness into a void. He doesn't listen.
Is this another caller too?
Yeah, we have David from New Mexico on the line.
Oh, I was gonna say, why are all these people calling in at the end of the show?
David likes to do that. He's told us why before. David, are you there?
Y'all running your mouth so much, can't get a word in edgewise anyways.
Sure. David.
Hey, this is radio you can't troll.
No, I'm the original. I can troll. This is radio you control.
Okay.
and it has expanded. Now I can even control the wallet.
What? Oh.
The Edge wallet. The wallet you control. I'm trolling that damn wallet.
The Mark Edge wallet?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always thought
Yeah,
before I met them that Mark was involved in the Edge wallet. Yeah. I really thought that.
Yeah, so there ain't no wage gap for the ladies that got thigh gap. They get paid more money than the men. Or the
Yeah,
men.
well, why don't we talk about the OnlyFans wage gap? It's not fair, man. I'm going on there and I'm doing all the things they say, humiliating myself. Those are really hard positions to get into, and all of the objects cost a lot of money. I mean, they say they want me to use certain ones, and I'm just not making it. It's not fair. It's sexist, man.
Gay dudes never were good tippers, man.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Well, no, they're good
I have no idea.
tippers.
I get it. I've never gotten it, but I understand.
That's a really good point. Nobody ever talks about how women make more money than men in certain jobs that women just are supposed to make more money than men in.
It's the oldest profession. They were making more money than men from the beginning.
It's just like this.
I was going to say that the turd needs just to cut to the chase and open a brothel.
Turd? Oh.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like, what am I good at? Women?
Oh,
What do I like?
By the way, so I looked this up during the break, and this is just the first one that came up. There's many other ones that might even be better, but I'll just say it out loud. So it's like a Venn diagram, and it has 4 circles, and the 4 primary circles are what you love doing, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And then where they overlap, where it's just 2 of those overlapping, like as an example, what you love doing and what the world needs is mission, but like what you can be paid for and what the world needs is vocation. And then the area, though, where all 4 of them is purpose. So there's a little bit more like he was.
What can you get paid for?
Yeah, what you're good at and what you can get paid for and what the world needs.
Wait a minute. Where's the circle of what is legal?
It's not on there, I guess.
What am I good at? Selling drugs. What does the world need?
Drugs.
Drugs. More drugs.
More drugs.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just helping out. He's not here right now, so it's true. It's true.
He's doing his impression of nobody.
Oh, yeah.
Could you tell?
Excuse me.
What?
I no, you lost me for a minute. That last bit of that sketch, I was trying to follow along, and I didn't know, I couldn't figure it out until you said nobody. So now I started to get it.
That is how he says drugs.
Drugs.
And how he says it's true. I can't do it like Colin. But
Nobody's quite a character, for sure.
He is quite a character.
But by the way, Riley, I think you're blind to some things. The other night you attributed what is it, technicalities to Captain Cuckass, and I think it came from nobody. I think he's the one that started that.
Oh, really?
Okay. Maybe he did, because I know Captain Kickass used it a lot.
What?
I'm saying technicalities as in technical difficulties.
So Captain Kickass loves portmanteaus, and technicalities is a portmanteau of technical difficulties.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have thought it was Captain Kickass also, but I don't know. Maybe, nobody's so smart. He, makes stuff up on the fly all the time, and it just, blows my mind that he just came up with X, Y, or Z on the fly. Also, he has, a crazy memory. He can, just sit there and recite to you stuff that he's read before. And sometimes he does it on purpose, like he's talked about purposely going and memorizing things. But even if I, purposely went and memorized a whole page of, Shakespeare, I wouldn't be able to do that for the rest of my life like he does. And it's actually sometimes Shakespeare. Anyways.
Who shakes beer? Nobody shakes beer, Bonnie. You lose half of it.
That's probably true.
And speaking of that, if the dude down in Argentina is so robust for the economy, how come you keep saying Malays this and Malays that and Malays the other thing?
What does that mean? Because he's Malays? I see.
Yeah.
Silly. Malays was actually the name of the lady we knew from South America. It's kind of funny.
Brazil, I believe?
No, she was from Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
Her family like escaped. There was a lady that owned Pho Keen Great, the restaurant in Keene. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Sometimes I feel like we're just talking between friends.
Was she hot? Turd wants to know.
Kind of. Yeah.
I think she was a cute small lady, and she actually like looked way younger than her age. Not that she was super old, but you would have thought she was like 40, and she's actually like 60.
Yeah, I remember being surprised. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I was quite surprised. She seemed to be in good shape.
Yeah, and then she died really suddenly.
Yeah.
This is not really like radio worthy stuff.
Part.
Yeah, that it happened so suddenly, and that's where the building or the store ended up closing down. Fucking great, which eventually turned into the name Funky Noodles, like PHO, for pho noodles, which is Vietnamese type of noodle food. Well, the thing that is so important about them and why we love them so much is because they were like one of the only places in Keene that we could go and gather as a group of libertarians and hang out and talk and not be forced to wear masks.
Yeah.
Even the restaurants that were open, like there were fewer open back then, and the ones that were open, they were all forcing you to wear a mask. Then there's one called Inateca in Keene, a really fancy restaurant that was actually requiring vaccine mandates.
Wow.
No, not mandates.
Sorry,
passports.
Vaccine passports. Yeah.
That is,
crazy.
Is still. I mean, going back to the Trump stuff. This is if you listen to that Dave Smith, Tom Woods thing, they're like, look, some people have to pay, like politically, and like we can't let these establishment people just win. And I mean, like, I think we forget, even though it was only just a year or two ago. I mean, time has flown.
And you want to forget.
But
seriously,
but there was a time when they were going to require you to have paperwork in order to go out into public and to eat food and to buy stuff.
And, like,
I mean,
New
Mark of the
Hampshire.
Beast stuff, like out of the Bible. We're talking satanic, biblical, evil. So I'm about to channel my inner Alex Jones right now, folks. I'm telling you, they're evil, folks. But like, I mean, as a person who's not religious or anything, that's what it was. I mean, that's what I have to call it, what it was. But I mean, that's so crazy. Like, where are these people now? Do they not think we need the passports now?
Yeah.
Or are they just waiting for another
Or they
opportunity?
just want you to forget about
Or
it.
just forget about? Are they embarrassed by it? Like, did they ever think, I wonder why I thought that was a good idea? Like, I just.
Do you mean just like the common person on the street who thought it was a good idea?
the person who was trying to implement it at their restaurant, because not all it's not like the state was requiring them to do it.
Yeah,
they were doing it on
New
their
Hampshire.
own. Like, that's crazy.
And the other thing is, like, we live in New Hampshire, so it wasn't that horrible here, even though like none of it should have happened. But in
it was
like,
surprisingly
New York City,
bad here, considering a lot of things. It was way better just if you in any red state.
Yeah. Well, not any red state. I really want to push back.
No,
on
I mean,
that because
like
people think-
Kansas, Missouri, all sorts of places.
People think it
we
was
traveled.
so great in Texas, and it was dystopian. It was crazy, especially in cities.
It really, truly showed the difference between cities and country.
That's
yeah.
Utah ended up being okay from what I remember. I mean, we didn't close down too many restaurants for too long. They did try to open things up a little more.
From what my parents said about Tooele, Utah, they said that they were acting like it was so horrible, but what they were telling me, I was like, that's amazing compared to me. They're like saying, like, I don't know, they just didn't wear a mask anywhere in Tooele, Utah, but there were certain things that were like, oh, this was so bad during COVID. And I was like, what? You guys had it great in Utah compared to
if you were
San
in Salt
Antonio.
Lake County or whatever, I think it was a lot worse because Salt Lake City is kind of a liberal town, even though it's the capital.
Yeah.
Me and my friends, we at the height of the lockdowns went to as many like underground things as we could. We traveled across the whole country, and it's like I noticed that they have this thing, they'll talk about districts in terms of politics, like, oh, it's a +1 R or whatever, like basically what propensity it has to go Republican or Democrat or whatever. It completely followed that trend to where it was like, okay, the places that were all masky and doing all the crazy stuff, it's like, was it college town? Was it a city versus the country? Was it, a place, was it in a red state versus a blue state? Was it, and each one of those is like a point. So, for instance, like we went to one of the craziest places we went to, not that there weren't places that were crazier, just one of the craziest places that we happened to travel through was Ann Arbor. And so it's like college town, city in a blue state in the north.
And that's where nobody is right now for
I know, yeah.
limited time. He said it's like he hates being there. It's like he's got to get out for a while. Like he said, he's definitely going to be coming to
and that was one of the craziest places for weird COVID stuff. But then we just go, but as soon as you went out of Ann Arbor just to anywhere else in Michigan, where like maybe as a county that would have been a red county, all of a sudden people were just normal, And I mean, by the way, that is really the way to look at it. It's like there was normal living the way everybody did it before all of that insanity. And then there was all this like crazy, I had to compare, what was that thing I called it? It's like a game of Simon Says.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Simon Says, put a mask on. Simon Says, put 2 masks on.
Yeah.
Simon Says, get a vaccine.
Simon Says, walk down the aisles one way.
Oh, we're actually going to have Ian Smith of Attilas Gym in New Jersey on the show pretty soon. I'm in emails with him.
Oh, excellent. That's going to be fun.
He's on board with helping us with the freeiannow.org whole campaign and everything. He read Jacob Hornberger's article about Ian, and he just wants to help any way he can, and he wants to come on the show, and I'm gonna like interview him all about what happened to him in 2020 with like the government was closing down his business, even boarding it up, and he was going there. He was getting straight out of jail, going straight there and taking the boarding off of his own gym and opening it up. So freaking awesome.
I love it. I remember hearing about it on Free Talk Live, and that was really cool.
Free Talk Live is the only reason I knew about it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like Ian Freeman, my husband, was talking about it any chance he could get because he just loved it because it's non-compliance. It's awesome.
Did Dave still there?
Yeah.
Did you say call?
Yeah, call in show.
It's a call-in show.
It's a call-in show.
Yeah. It's a call-in
Radio
show.
You can't troll.
There's no T there.
Except for when I call, the rules change. But you were onto something because one of the, it's not by accident. Let me start it with that. The powers that be understand the psychology of the low power individuals, citizens that in normal life have no power over other people, and so the powers that be that want to control you, those that do have autonomy in their own lives, what they do is they make a rule, and then they make the enforcers of the rule all the low power people, even minority groups. Minority doesn't mean color. It means that you are a demographic that's
not the majority. Yeah.
And so the powers that be make a rule that gives those disempowered individuals and groups power over you, and they're happy to exercise it. So, mask Nazi.
I mean, so in the experience, because we had experiences where we were chased out of places, where things like that happened. Not as many of them as you might expect. So I'm going to disagree a little bit because there are those people who did like having the power over everybody, but that was like maybe, 10% of the people who were doing the thing. So what about the other 90%? Why were they doing it? And I mean, the theory that I keep coming back to, because it just answers everything. Like everything falls into place if I just say this is my theory. It's that they're NPCs. NPCs exist. They're programmable humans, and there's messages that get put out there, and or maybe you could even say hypnotizable, because I don't know if you know the thing about.
People are programmable. That's why there's such thing as our formative years. The years that we are formatted like a computer. Before you start using your computer, you format it.
Yep.
And that's why they say, like, if you show me the child from age 0 to 6, I'll show you the man, because...
You know what, though? I think we've had this conversation maybe on this show before, where it's like, well, you went to public school, and why aren't you fitting in?
Well, because I was homeschooled 0 to 3rd grade, and
but even still, there were some other people here who did go and who were supposedly programmed but rejected all of it. So even if you have the kid, they might reject it.
I think it's just a mixture, just like the conversation about nature versus nurture. It's just a mixture. Like it's both things.
I kind of think that there's just some people that they're programmable and other people just aren't. And
it's probably harder for them. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that there's anyone that isn't programmable as like a 6-year-old and younger.
Well, I guess maybe I'd have to think more about how to differentiate between trainable versus programmable. I mean, I'm trained, like I know how to like do things in public, you know, rather than just, you know, like walking around naked all the time or something.
I trained him to do this and that. Come on Free Talk Live.
Is Colin now your puppy?
Yes.
Like Coconut?
Yes. Soon he'll be fixed, just like I fixed Mark and Ian and Coconut. I'm just kidding. Riley is next.
I think Alana would like me to get me. Alana would like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Let me give you some advice, young man. You don't ever let a woman emasculate you like that. Actually, that's not Alex Jones. Now I'm Jay. That's what we do with the cows. We take the bulls and we turn them into steers. And I know it's the same voice. Jay doesn't actually sound like that. I just can't pull off Jay's actual voice.
Yeah.
So if you just do Alex Jones voice for Jay, it just always works.
Yeah, and it does. Everybody seems to accept it. They're like, yeah, that seems like Jay for some reason.
Have you done that in front of Jay?
Yeah, he knows that's the voice that he used for him. I think maybe it'd be more upsetting to him if I somehow had a voice that was closer to his.
We're talking about Jay Noon for our listeners who don't know. Who
God, yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's supposed to be on more coming up soon. He's I don't know, wasn't able to do any show except Thursday. Then we stopped having Thursdays, and now he will be able to do weekends sometime soon coming up.
Nice.
Yeah. For those that missed him, he's always talking about not getting your kids on screens and stuff like that, and how people don't do enough physical work anymore, which is all true.
He wants natural dopamine hits in society.
He wants natural dopamine. Yeah.
I've got a bag of those dopamine hits right here. We grew them out on our farm.
Yeah.
All natural.
Well, it's true.
Sounds a little bit like What's Chris Cantwell? Sounds a little bit like Chris Cantwell as well.
Well, if you try to make maybe like a New Yorker accent in it, I don't know. Maybe he has a bit gravelly, whatever you call that. And then also he's like from Staten Island or something like that, so he talks very New Yorkery. And it makes everything he says way funnier. Like everything he says, it gets funnier because of his accent.
That's why you don't realize how horrible all the things are that he's saying. You're too busy just laughing, and you're like, it's so funny.
I haven't really listened to a whole lot of him. I've heard him literally like on the phone with Ian. There was a time he interviewed Ian like right before Ian went to jail, and that was very nice. Actually, it was very sweet. Chris Cantwell cried about like how much he loves Ian.
He cries about everything.
He cries? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's the crying Nazi.
Yes.
The crying Nazi.
I forgot. It was just sweet that he cried about how much he loves Ian.
We're having a moment of silence, I guess.
No, I'm just trying to think of all the times that I know that he's cried, but that I don't think I should probably say on the air.
But he claims that he wasn't crying whenever he became the crying Nazi. He said that he got pepper sprayed in the face.
Yeah, that's not crying. That's just...
And I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been pepper sprayed before. And it just... Don't ask... It wasn't on a date, folks. It was oh, wait, has this... I think this may have been mentioned on the show before, but TJ the Spy wanted me to pepper spray him. And so, but the thing is, pepper spray, there's more than one victim. Even when you spray it, you're going to get a little bit on you. Wow. And the little bit that I got onto me, I was like, oh, this is really bad. But like he had his eyes were full of it. And he's just like in the shower, like trying to rinse it out. And as he's like shouting, he's like, ah, as he's like washing his eyes out.
Me and my friends in high school, she had like a pepper spray like I have right here. And we would just wanted to see, we thought it like burned your skin more, like anything it touched a lot more. So we sprayed our own arms on purpose, like without looking. And I had way longer hair back then than I do now. I can't even get my hair as long as I had it in high school. And it was like we were outside, so my hair kind of blew into the pepper spray that was on my arm and literally went up and touched my eye. A freaking second. So that was so bad for a little while. Pepper spray is no joke.
And not all of them are that strong, so even the one you had might not have been an actually
just one of these like ones that girls have in their purses, like I have right here. That's
I don't know.
I want to get a bear spray one because I have this pepper spray with me every time.
Cantwell can help you. He has some of that.
Well, I don't know.
Or did back in the day.
Every time I take a walk or anything, I take this pepper spray with me. Well, it's been Free Talk Live, and you can go to freetalklive.com for more. Thanks for listening. I hope you, as a libertarian, do vote for Trump tomorrow. And peace.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got